I noticed I spelled facilitating wrong. Great. If I have one Achilles heel, it's my terrible typos. So sorry about that. All right, thanks everyone for joining me. I'll get started here in just a second. I have 3 things to talk about. The third topic should be a little fun. It's about The View and Don Jr. I think that'll be fun. But other than that, we're going to be talking about the coup and Epstein again and revelations that have come up. So I guess I'll start with the impeachment coup. Will be where we start today. So no sense waiting for people. They'll join. So let's just jump right in. So if you saw one of my videos I put out this morning, I've done a couple videos this week on it, and I think it's worth talking about them, even if you've kind of heard me rehash this before. I think that as people, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you probably agree with me that this impeachment effort, hey, how's it going, Pacey? I assume if you're watching this, you probably agree with me about this coup attempt, but even if not, that's okay. I'll get to you as well. I think that we need to simplify this because it's very difficult for people, average people, to understand. Again, the average person is just kind of passively consuming this information. Most people have 9-to-5 jobs. They have families to care about. They have all kinds of things in their life that they're more worried about or more entertained by than sitting down and watching the news or reading through testimony and things like that. So they're kind of passively getting this information that's kind of out there in the ether of what's going on in the public narrative. And the public narrative is all controlled by the establishment, particularly the establishment left. So when you have the media, the entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, academia, and they're all pushing the same narrative that, oh yeah, we need to impeach Trump, he's a terrible person, etc., etc. It's been this way since Trump was running for office, even before he was elected. So it's difficult to break in. Most people just kind of hear this. They're not actively listening. They probably don't care. But to the extent they know about it, it's like, oh, Trump did something shady. And so the easiest thing you could do is just break it down. Don't lie, obviously. Everything I say will be the honest truth and it'll be easy to prove. But to make it as simple as possible, one of the mistakes people tend to make when they're trying to convince people, particularly people that maybe aren't as well informed or as interested in what you're talking about, one of the mistakes people make is they get too detailed and things get confusing. For example, I'm not the greatest hunter in the world, but I love listening to people talk about hunting. But if they start to get into very nuanced details about, oh, you know, my gun was set up this way and it had this and this, I lose interest because it becomes overly complicated. So you make the story as broad and accessible as possible. So because of that, I think that this is the best way. The video I just did this morning, I think, is the best way to convince people. And I would hope convince people that even hate Trump that this is a ridiculous impeachment attempt. And I'll set it out as following. In order for our country to exist, we need to have fundamental agreements on things. So we can have diverse people. And I'm not one of these people that chant diversity is our strength. Because when people say that, they often mean, oh, skin color or religion, you know, something like that. I don't care about any of that. I care about diversity of thought, of opinion. That's what I like. I don't care what your skin color is, what your religion is, what your sexual preference is. Don't care at all. I just like people that think different things. I think that is a strength of ours. But in order to have a country with that kind of diverse opinions, you need to have some common threads holding you together. Otherwise, it's not really a country. So I think one of the threads we need to have is pretty simple. And that's to understand when we meet a threshold for needing to investigate possible corruption. I would propose that this is a fundamental belief that we all need to have. Right? You ready for this? Anytime a member of the executive branch threatens to withhold large sums of U.S. tax dollars in order to get an entity to fire a prosecutor who happens to be looking into someone in their family's company, there should be an investigation. Do you understand what I'm saying? It sounds complicated. It sounds like a lot, but it's really a simple thing. If you're the president or the vice president or the secretary of state or anyone involved in government at that level, and you're using U.S. tax dollars for something that really looks like it could be to personally influence an investigation into a member of your family, we need to have an investigation. Now, I know I'm not saying Hunter Biden specifically was being investigated, even though that's what the fired prosecutor said, that Hunter Biden was part of the investigation. But his company was being investigated. And Hunter Biden, undoubtedly, everyone will admit, stood to lose a lot of money. He was getting paid $80,000 a month, sometimes more, by this company Burisma. So if Burisma would have went down for being corrupt, he stood to lose that money. Therefore, when his dad, who admitted this isn't me interpreting something. This is his father's own words. You could look up the video yourself on YouTube. Joe Biden said, I was the one. I went to the Ukraine. I said, you will not get this $1 billion until you fire this prosecutor. Ukraine said to him, you're not in charge, that's Obama. Biden said, go ahead and call Obama. He'll agree with me. I'm leaving in 6 hours. If you don't fire the guy or start the ball rolling on his firing, you're not getting the money. And wouldn't you know, they fired the son of a bitch. That's what he said. That's Joe Biden's own words. Now, I don't care if Biden was, because this is a defense you're seeing. Oh, Joe Biden lied. That was just Biden lying. He lied about that. We have to believe him when he's running for president. We have to believe him when he says he didn't talk to his son about business. But he lied there. He lied about using that quid pro quo. Sorry. If you have an executive branch official like that, admit publicly, I used $1 billion of your tax dollars to force someone to be fired. The person that was fired happened to be looking into the company that my son was on the board of directors from. That needs to be investigated. I don't care if it's a Republican, a Democrat, independent, Green Party, Libertarian, doesn't matter. I don't care if the Queen of England says it was okay to use that U.S. tax dollars to get that person fired because they were corrupt. Or the head of the International Monetary Fund. Or the Prime Minister of Canada or France. I don't care if they all say, oh, no, it was okay. It's okay for the U.S. executive branch person to use taxpayer money to fire the prosecutor. I don't care what any of them say. I don't care if the entire 100% of every single person in our mainstream media says it was totally fine. It was perfect. It doesn't need investigated. It's totally legitimate for this executive branch official to use $1 billion U.S. tax dollars to force the firing of the prosecutor who's supposed to be looking at his son. I don't care. I don't care if your argument is, but that prosecutor was doing a lousy job and he really wasn't, even though he was in charge on paper, he really wasn't pursuing the investigation. I, again, don't care. None of that matters. None of it matters. If an executive branch authority, a person high up in the executive branch, uses large sums of U.S. tax dollars to force the firing of a person who, at least on paper, is the one who's investigating his son or his family member's company, there needs to be an investigation. Period. That's it. It's that simple. I don't know how simple. If your mayor in your town, right? If the mayor in your town found out that the local police chief was investigating his son's company, and so the mayor took your local tax money and told the police, I'm not going to give you a budget with this tax money unless you fire that chief of police. Every single person in your town would say, this is outrageous. There needs to be an investigation immediately. It wouldn't matter if the chief of police came out and said, but look, all of these the mayor also thinks this, or I'm sorry, it wouldn't matter if the mayor said, but my underling mayor, or the deputy mayor also agrees the police chief's corrupt. And the mayor next town over also thinks this police chief's corrupt. Okay, that's fine. But there still needs to be an investigation. I'm not saying, and nor do I have to prove, that Hunter Biden is guilty of anything or Joe Biden's guilty of anything. Now, I have personal opinions on what's most likely the case, but that's not a threshold I have to meet or that Trump has to meet. The only threshold that needs met is, should there be an investigation into that? That's it. What if, you might be saying, but what if Shokin, this fired prosecutor, what if he was corrupt? What if he really was? What if we could sit down and prove that he was corrupt? Irrelevant. It is a conflict of interest for Joe Biden to force the firing of the prosecutor looking into his son, even if he had good reasons to. If Joe Biden was honest, he would say, okay, and let's assume Joe Biden's honest and he didn't do anything unethical. He would say, look, I didn't want this guy fired because he was looking into my son, but I realize it looks bad. So I'm welcoming an investigation. That's what Joe Biden would say. And if you have any doubt that that's what the Democrats and the media class and all the establishment class, do you have any doubt whatsoever, if we just switch the names Biden to Trump, do you have any doubt that they wouldn't demand an investigation? If we find out that the new president says, hey, my head prosecutor is now looking into a company ran by Trump Jr. And Trump, the aid that Trump just gave, right? Remember, that's what this is all about, aid that Trump gave? One second. Remember, that's what this is all about. Did Trump use the aid, a quid pro quo? Let's say we started giving the aid, right? That's happened because Ukraine did get the money. That's the end of the story. But let's say Trump says, whoa, I'm pulling back the aid now. I'm pulling it back until you fire the prosecutor that you have looking into my son. Do you have any doubt that the media wouldn't scream, and the Democrats, they'd scream impeachment, but they definitely at least want an investigation. The media would be over there 24/7. They'd be interviewing the prosecutor that was fired. They'd be seeing what he had to say. Do you think the media would say, oh, no, it's no big deal because Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage in the UK, they said it was cool. They said that prosecutor was crappy, so it's cool. No problem that Trump did that. And in fact, if the Democrats want to investigate Trump doing that, then they should be impeached because they're committing a crime. You think that's what the media would say? You think that's what the Democrats would say? No problem. Well, actually, the prosecutor that Trump got fired, he wasn't really doing a good job looking into Don Jr. Trump got him fired because he wanted a better prosecutor to look at Don Jr. You think they'd believe that? You think the media and the Democrats say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Trump just wanted his son investigated harder. Because that's their story. That's the official narrative of Biden. If we've learned anything in these past couple years, it's the idea of intent being important. Right? That's why Hillary was left off the clock, supposedly. Because of intent. She didn't have the intent. We know that was garbage. We all know it. But the idea is, with the Trump situation, they've admitted a quid pro quo wasn't necessary. Pelosi and Schiff have both said quid pro quo wasn't necessary. There are even people saying we don't even need evidence of a crime. Because they can't point to the crime. You say, okay, what crime did Trump supposedly commit here? They can't point to it. They just say it was a misuse of his office. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. It's not that quid pro quos are a misuse of office, because every president uses quid pro quos. It's done in foreign policy all the time. Heck, we know Joe Biden used a quid pro quo. He admitted it. So it's not the quid pro quo that's bad. It's using it for untoward reasons. Or, in other words, your motivation for the quid pro quo was wrong. That's what they're claiming, right? How do we know what Donald Trump's motivation was? They say, hey, if he discussed Biden, then his motivation must have been because it was to personally help him in the 2020 election. They just assume that. They assume that's what it must have been. It couldn't be that Trump was actually interested in outing corruption. It couldn't be that Trump was interested in investigating 2016 election interference. Nope. Had to just be for personal reasons. Yet at the exact same time that these people say this, the exact same time, they'll tell you, and I had someone tell me this today on a message board I was on discussing this case, that they know in Biden's heart, they know Biden's motivation was pure. So these people, on one hand, they could see inside Trump's heart. They know his motivations were corrupt. On the other hand, they could see inside Biden's heart, and they know his motivations were pure. So pure, in fact, that to even say, well, then let's have an investigation to make sure, is a crime. Nope. Can't do it. Do you see how insane this is? Even if Shokin actually was corrupt, even if I concede that, Shokin was this terrible, corrupt person, he was dragging his feet, he didn't want to investigate Hunter Biden's son's company and the oligarch that owned it. Even if I concede that, which I'm not, but for the sake of this argument, let's say I concede that, right? Does that mean that Joe Biden couldn't have also had a personal reason for wanting that prosecutor ousted? Two things could be true simultaneously, and it would be corrupt. So we have the Democrats in the media, they're saying, well, we know. Yeah, because, right, Beth, they're saying because he investigated a rival. So the idea, but break that down. What does that mean? It was wrong for Trump to do it because he investigated a rival. In other words, Trump did it for personal reasons. Trump issued his quid pro quo, which again, it wasn't a quid pro quo, read the transcript, but they're saying it was. Trump issued his quid pro quo to benefit himself personally. That's what they're saying. That would be illegitimate. Yet on the other hand, they know that. They claim they know that without any evidence. They know what was in Trump's heart. But they're saying not only do they know what was in Biden's heart, that this was not to benefit him personally. His was just to out corruption. Trump couldn't be trying to out corruption. Nope, couldn't be. It has to just be for personal reasons with Trump. But Biden, it couldn't have been for personal reasons. It clearly was just to out corruption. By the way, what's the end of the story? Right? Biden, because we're told Biden just wanted his son's company investigated harder. That's why he was insistent Shokin be fired. So when they fired Shokin, what happened? Well, it went to the NABU, the agency in the Ukraine that was allied with the Obama administration, that had buried cases for them in the past, that interfered in the 2016 election to help Hillary by releasing dirt on Manafort. That's the agency. That same agency that interfered in the 2016 election, which I'll get to later in this video, that's the same agency that then got the investigation into Joe Biden's son's company. Now, Joe Biden and Barack Obama, remember, they knew that Zlochevsky was guilty. Zlochevsky's the oligarch that owned the gas company Hunter Biden worked for. They knew he was guilty. They were so upset that he was guilty and being allowed to walk free that they were willing to withhold $1 billion U.S. tax dollars until the prosecutor got fired that was letting this man walk free. Okay, so then it got put to their allies in the NABU. Okay, surely then the NABU, they brought the hammer down on Zlochevsky and Burisma, right? They brought it down. He's sitting in jail right now. Oh, I'm sorry, what's that? He just had to pay a small fine and he walked free? How can that be? We were told that this guy was clearly guilty by Obama and Biden. He's clearly corrupt. Huh. Well, then I guess, okay. Well, then surely Biden and Obama clamored to get that $1 billion back. Because the idea, remember, the defense was, they didn't want to give $1 billion to a corrupt place that was allowing corrupt oligarchs to walk free. Okay, so surely they've called for Trump to stop giving aid to the Ukraine, right? Oh, no, that's right. They said if Trump stops giving aid to the Ukraine, it's criminal. They haven't said word one about Zlochevsky walking free. But trust us, we have to know inside Biden's heart, it had nothing to do with his son. Nothing to do with it. Now look, I'm making it complicated again. What's real simple is this. I might think I'm a good judge of people. Maybe you think you're a good judge of people. I think that I could look inside and think, oh, this is why this person's doing this or why they're doing that. But I have no proof. My personal feelings on what I feel people's motivations are should be irrelevant. So should your personal feelings. So should everyone's personal feelings. How about we just have a nice simple rule? I propose that rule is, if you're an executive branch member and you're using large sums of U.S. tax dollars to force someone to be fired, and that person just happened to be the person tasked with investigating your family's company, we should investigate. And if you did nothing wrong, if your motivations were pure, then the investigation will bear that out. No problem. You have no one but yourself to blame if you put yourself in that situation. Period. This isn't like I'm saying investigate everyone for everything. That's not what I'm saying at all. How many times in history, can you name one other time in history that we had a president or a vice president withhold U.S. aid that was voted on by Congress until a prosecutor got fired? Can you name one other time? I can't. I've looked into it. We can't agree that that should be investigated? Instead, we have to... What's the criteria then? Well, when the Democrats and the media determine your heart is pure, then you're allowed to do that. But if the Democrats and the media determine your heart is not pure, then you need to be impeached. You honestly think that's a credible standard? And again, if it was Trump that did this, you know the Democrats and the media would be demanding an investigation. And I could prove it. Because it's happened. An analogous situation has happened. Do you remember the Mueller investigation? Does anyone remember why the Mueller investigation started? Why did he have to be appointed in the first place? Let me take you on a little trip in time, right? Once upon a time, there was an FBI director named James Comey, and that director was universally loathed by Republicans and Democrats alike. In fact, many Democrats said, even before the election of Trump, that Comey should be fired. They were upset because he released information about an investigation into Hillary Clinton before the election. Republicans also hated Comey. They thought he was terrible, and he acted unprofessionally. Even independent people who had no stake in caring if it was Trump or Hillary thought that Comey made an utter fool of himself in all sorts of things. For example, acting as a prosecutor and making the determination that Hillary Clinton didn't break the law, coming out before the election and announcing the reopening of the investigation, giving a press conference where he said that Hillary Clinton was not going to be charged, but then went into all the details of all the things he did wrong. All of that is unprofessional. And we've backed that up too, because an independent IG report showed time after time after time how Comey and the FBI under him broke protocol in ways that severely damaged the credibility of the FBI. I would argue they're crimes, but I don't even have to prove the point they're crimes. All you have to do is prove it was a really crappy job. Comey was doing terrible. Everybody thought he should be fired. Well, not everybody, but many people on the left and right thought he should be fired. Right? Rod Rosenstein thought he should be fired. Rod Rosenstein wrote a memo saying, Trump, you should fire Comey. So after all of that, right? All of it. Trump says, okay, I'm going to fire Comey. Record scratch. Wait, what? Trump's going to fire Comey? Oh my God. Trump's firing a prosecutor that may have been looking into him or his allies? We need a special counsel. Even Rod Rosenstein, who wrote the memo suggesting to fire Comey, then said, boy, that's weird. Trump listened to my memo. I guess I need to appoint a special counsel to investigate Trump. I know. I'll pick the guy he fired's mentor, Bob Mueller. Now, I don't remember one Democrat or one media person that's out there saying, hey, no need to investigate Biden. In fact, to investigate Biden would be criminal. He was right to want this prosecutor fired because people in the EU and people at the International Monetary Fund said, yes, we should fire that prosecutor. Do you remember one of those people that are making that defense of Biden? Just one of them. Have you seen one of them say, well, wait a minute. Republicans and Democrats wanted Comey fired. This is a crime to investigate Trump over that. That's a sham. Not one of them said that. Not one. They all demanded the investigation into Trump. Despite the fact that Republicans and Democrats both wanted Comey fired. So let's just rehash here. Republicans and Democrats, including Rod Rosenstein, wanted Comey fired. Trump fires Comey, And the media and the Democrats screamed that we need an independent counsel that ended up lasting 2 years to investigate Trump because of that. Now, a bunch of people around the world wanted Shokin fired. Biden uses $1 billion tax dollars to get Shokin fired. And, everyone says no big deal. Everyone else wanted him fired, so it was cool. This is clear hypocrisy. And I'm going to do a video that outlines just this comparison to the Mueller investigation. But how can anyone not see that that's hypocrisy and corruption? Now, we all know it. We have to listen to Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff going to, this is a somber day. The media, we're very somber. It's a very serious. We're praying for the president. It's very serious. We hate to have an impeachment inquiry. This is the same group of people that before Trump were elected were talking about it's time to impeach. The same people that tried to impeach him for saying shithole country. Remember that? The votes on impeachment on that? The same people that voted for impeachment for the inquiry before they even read the whistleblower transcript. They're liars. We know it. We know they're liars. But we have to just pretend. We have to pretend they're legitimate people somehow. It's nonsense. Now so that's it. That's the basic story. That's what I know I only have 2 people watching, but that's what I recommend when you tell people. You just say, look, if there was a president or a vice president and they used $1 billion of your tax dollars to force some prosecutor to be fired, and that prosecutor happened to be looking into the company that president or vice president's son was on the board of directors for, do you think there should be an investigation? Not we lynch the person, not we hang him or we put him in the electric chair. Just do you think that warrants investigating just to make sure that it wasn't for personal reasons? Almost every single person that's objective would say, yes, of course, investigate. But because Orange Man bad, because Trump's a bad dude, oh no, it's perfectly fine for Biden to do this. Now, why does this matter? If there is a reason to investigate, there is literally 0 case to impeach Trump. You can't impeach him for pursuing a legitimate investigation. It's that simple. Again, and I can't believe, why isn't anyone breaking it down like this? It's simple. Every single person in the country, particularly politicians and media people, should be asked this question. If a president or vice president, use whatever name you want, if Trump uses taxpayer dollars to force the firing of a prosecutor looking at his son's company, do you think he should be investigated? And if your answer isn't yes, if it's, well, it depends, then you need to look in the mirror. Because you're a partisan. And you're allowing that partisanship to affect your judgment. I'm telling you right now, if Trump withholds my tax money to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into his son's company, I will demand an investigation into Donald Trump. Guaranteed. Yet the Democrats have no problem when their person does it. Neither does the media. Do you mean to tell me just another, one of the reasons I voted for Trump was to out the corruption of the media. The media had no interest in this story. None. Are you kidding me? A vice president using $1 billion US taxpayer dollars to get a prosecutor fired who's looking into his son's company. And the media was like, yeah, no big deal. Not only that, not only did the media not investigate, they're saying for you to want to investigate or for Trump to want to investigate, you're a conspiracy theorist or you should be impeached if you're Trump. That's our media. But when I cite evidence, when I'm on board citing evidence and I'm like, here's an article from John Solomon, you know what the answer I'm giving is? Because no one can argue against the actual real facts he's putting out. They're like, oh, John Solomon's corrupt. He's biased. Here's my New York Times article that proves it. Oh, you mean those guys that are covering up for the pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, which we'll get to later? Yeah, sure, they sound stand-up. Now, I did a PowerPoint, which I'd encourage everyone to check out. It's a video I did. You can tell. It says, the Democrats' defense of Trump is absurd. Check it out if you haven't. It's real easy to understand. It's just a 10-minute video. But in a nutshell, here's their defense, the media and the Democrats' defense. I already said, a bunch of other people said, the IMF said it, the EU said it was cool, so it's okay. Their argument is quite literally, because remember, here's things that are not in dispute. We know that Obama and Biden said Zlochevsky was guilty. He was corrupt. We know that that was in part of their calculus as to why they wanted Shokin fired. This is what they claim. They wanted Shokin fired because he wasn't charging Zlochevsky. Again, Zlochevsky was the person in charge of the gas company Hunter Biden's on the board of directors for him and was getting paid $80,000 a month from. Even if that's the end of the story, if Biden never issues his quid pro quo, if Shokin never gets fired, don't you think that that's enough? A reason at least for the media to be investigating? Wait a minute. So Joe Biden's in charge of outing corruption, and Joe Biden and the Obama administration are saying, this guy specifically is corrupt. This guy Zlochevsky, he is corrupt. They're specifically saying that, right? Yet at the same time, Joe Biden's son works for Zlochevsky and is getting paid $80,000 a month. For what? He has no expertise. He has no expertise in the gas industry. He has no expertise in Ukraine. Most people that are on the board of directors of energy company are getting like $20,000 a month. So what's Hunter Biden getting paid 4 times that amount for when he has no expertise? It doesn't have to be a crime. We have things called ethics violations. That's a conflict of interest. Even the media has admitted in retrospect, well, yes, it was a conflict of interest, but it was still okay, but Biden did nothing wrong. Are you kidding me? That conflict of interest alone should be enough for an investigation. Joe Biden and the Obama administration were giving subsidies and foreign aid to Ukraine's gas industry. At the same time that the largest gas company in the Ukraine that was owned by someone that Obama and Biden called corrupt was paying Joe Biden's son $80,000 a month. That's unbelievable. And that's not even what I'm calling for an investigation into. That's just bad enough right there. But then it goes a step further. Ukraine decides to investigate that corrupt company. They have a prosecutor. Now look, we could go back and forth. Was this prosecutor corrupt? Was he really doing his job? It doesn't matter. The Democrats and the media's argument is Joe Biden and Barack Obama looked and they see this prosecutor Shokin and they think, Shokin's not investigating Biden's son's company hard enough. That's the argument from the Democrats. Now, if this was Trump and I said, oh no, it's cool that Trump got that prosecutor looking into his son's company fired because Trump was just concerned that the prosecutor wasn't looking into his son hard enough, you would laugh me out of the room. Jake Tapper, all these media people would laugh in my face and go, how can you say that with a straight face? You honestly think that Donald Trump would say, I think my son's company's guilty. I think the guy that owns it's guilty. I want to investigate it even harder. Yet that's what they do with Biden. That's literally that's their version of the story. Not mine. That's their version. That's laughable. But okay, let's accept it. As stupid as that is. Fine. Okay. So here's where we're, for the sake of argument, here's where we're at, right? Here's the facts outlined. Joe Biden and Barack Obama think this Zlochevsky guy's guilty, that's paying Hunter Biden all this money. They're upset that he's not really being investigated hard enough. So they conditioned $1 billion in guaranteed loans to the Ukraine to fire the prosecutor in charge of that investigation. Okay? Fine. Let's say that because they really want Zlochevsky investigated, right? Okay. As absurd as that sounds, let's grant all that. Okay, granted. Now the next step. Then what happens? The investigation gets moved, right? And it gets moved to an agency called the NABU. Now, if you've been watching my videos or you've watched John Solomon's reporting, you know that the NABU was an agency that was created with the help of the Obama administration. And this is going to sound complicated, like trying to break it down as simple as possible. And it's not because I think the people listening to me aren't intelligent. It's because I think about how I would be if I was here. There's so many names and acronyms, it's very confusing. I get that. The only reason I understand is because I have no life and I have time to look into this stuff. Remember, you had a president, Yovanovitch. He was a pro-Putin president. He's been claimed. There was a coup that ousted him, and the new president, Poroshenko, came in. A coup, by the way, the United States and Obama helped facilitate. So then a pro-Obama, anti-Putin president's put in. His name's Poroshenko. Well, the United States and the Obama administration is trying to help the new administration in the Ukraine stay on its feet. That's what all this aid money, that's what the $1 billion in guaranteed loans were. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at that letter that the 3 Democratic senators sent in 2018, where they did the exact same thing Trump's accused of. They said, hey, your country's doing good there. The United States has helped you guys. We're pleased to see that your military and your political system's doing well. It'd be a shame if it wasn't. We'd be very disappointed if you stopped giving us evidence about Trump to Mueller. That's what their letter, they literally did the exact same thing they're accusing Trump of. But anyways, all I'm talking about right here is that letter specifically says, yeah, we've given you this aid to help your country. We're glad your fledgling administration's doing well. Right? So that's the context. That's what's going on. You got this new guy, Poroshenko. U.S. is pleased. The Obama administration's pleased because now we've taken a country that had their leadership be an ally of Russia, and now they're kind of antithetical towards Russia, right? That's what's going on. So we're propping them up. We're giving them aid. Your tax money, which is garbage in its own right. I'm not saying it's a crime. I'm just saying that crap's garbage. I'm tired of our tax money being used to meddle in foreign countries. It's ridiculous. But anyways, that's what's going on, right? One of the things we did in helping that new administration get started, or not we, but the Obama administration, was it helped set up this agency called the NABU. The NABU was modeled after the United States FBI. It was supposed to be their premier investigative agency. That's the agency that ends up getting the case into Hunter Biden's company, Burisma, and its owner, Zlochevsky. So remember, Obama and Biden say Zlochevsky's guilty. They want Shokin, the prosecutor, fired because he's not investigating them hard enough. So the investigation gets kicked to the NABU. Now, the NABU, not only was it propped up by the Obama administration, but it actually worked in concert with them and the Obama State Department. And we know this. For example, the prosecutor that came in after Shokin was a man by the name of Lutsenko. Lutsenko says that the NABU routinely was working with the State Department of Obama to bury investigations into Democratic donors. Specifically, there was an action group in the Ukraine named the Anti-Corruption Action Center. This was a group that was funded by George Soros and Obama's State Department. They were being investigated by the NABU and by Lutsenko for the crime of getting illegal monies foreignly, not reporting it correctly, and things like that. Lutsenko has publicly stated that he was told by the U.S. State Department, Yovanovitch specifically, who we'll get to her later, that he needed to drop the case into the Anti-Corruption Action Center. He's publicly stated that. And there were other allegations of other people's Democratic donors that were also meddling in, because that's the truth with these globalists, these Soros-connected globalists. They're meddling in countries all around the world. They want a globalist system. And so there were all sorts of investigations, just like you keep hearing about foreign interference in our country, right? And how it's a big deal. Well, the Ukraine's looking into it. They're like, whoa, we got all these outside monies interfering our system. We're going to investigate it. The Obama administration says, no. And the NABU goes, okay, sir, we'll bury that investigation. Now, even if you don't believe that, even if you say, well, wait a minute, that's just John Sullivan and Lutsenko and they're corrupt. We don't believe them. Okay, fine. Then disregard that. We know the NABU was the agency with a Ukrainian politician named Leshchenko, not to be confused with Lutsenko, the prosecutor. Leshchenko publicly admitted to the Financial Times in August of 2016 to interfering in the 2016 election to hurt Donald Trump and help Hillary. Publicly admitted to a mainstream media publication in the United States they interfered in the election. That was the NABU. The same agency in the Ukraine that interfered in the 2016 election, admitted it, publicly admitted it, interfered in the 2016 election by releasing a black ledger. And let me quickly talk about how they interfered. Here's what they did, and they admitted to this. They were investigating Paul Manafort, again, for corruptly influencing Ukrainian politics. Their system's similar to ours and similar to most legal systems that while there's an ongoing investigation, you don't release information of that investigation to the public. But a DNC operative named Alexandra Chalupa was sent by the DNC to work with Ukraine to get dirt on Donald Trump. Doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that what the Democrats said was such a huge deal? If Trump's team was working with foreign countries to get dirt on their opponent, that was a big deal. Well, we actually have proof that this was happening with the Democrats. So Chalupa goes over to the Ukraine, and she's working with Ukrainians, Leshchenko and the NABU. The NABU is the ones that are doing the investigation in Manafort. They give all the information they have on Manafort. They give it to the DNC operative. Leshchenko comes out and admits in the Financial Times article, which I'll try to link later, and also there was a Politico article in 2017. He admits before the election, in August of 2016, he admits, yeah, me and a bunch of other politicians and investigators in this country want Trump to lose. We think that he'll be pro-Putin and that he'll go back to wanting Crimea to go back to Russia. And so they didn't like Trump's policies. So they're pushing heavily for Hillary Clinton. They admit, they used the word interfere. Yes, we're interfering. The media didn't have a problem with it. That was publicly admitted to the mainstream media in 2016, 2 months before the election. Media had no problem with it. That same agency is the one that got the investigation into Burisma and Hunter Biden. Now, if the NABU liked the Obama administration and liked the Democrats so much that they were willing to break their own country's laws by releasing classified evidence or evidence of an ongoing investigation to DNC operatives, don't you think that they would be willing to, at the very least, have a fair investigation into someone that Biden and Obama said was corrupt and needed to be thrown in jail? Because remember where we're at with this story, right? Biden and Obama, their version of events is, we thought Zlochevsky and his company Burisma was corrupt. We thought that we needed to use $1 billion to get the prosecutor looking into them fired because we wanted a real investigation into this corrupt guy. So now we know it gets kicked off to an agency that they're allied with, that was willing to break the law to interfere to help the Democrats in the 2016 election. So at this point, it's a no-brainer. We know Zlochevsky's corrupt. We know that finally an agency that's willing to listen to Obama and Biden say Zlochevsky's corrupt is now in charge of the investigation. So it's a no-brainer. Surely they're going to have a fair investigation and find Zlochevsky guilty, right? But no! That's not what happens. What do you think happened? Just take a guess if you don't know. So it goes to Obama and Biden's ally, and within a year they bury the case. Zlochevsky has to pay a fine, a few dollars in back taxes. He's let go with a slap on the wrist. That's it. Investigation over. Now, even if I believe all of this, their version of the events, at this point, if Biden and Obama knew that Zlochevsky is guilty, if they were so angry about him being left to walk free, they said, this proves your country's corrupt. You're letting corrupt oligarchs walk free. Therefore, we will not give $1 billion to a corrupt country. Only when you change prosecutors and get a non-corrupt one who will actually take down Zlochevsky will we give you the money. Okay, Ukraine says. They fire the prosecutor. It gets put to an agency that's allies of Biden and Obama. They give the $1 billion, and Zlochevsky walks free. They bury the investigation. So at this point, Biden and Obama surely came out and was like, what the hell? My God, Ukraine's still corrupt. We need to get our $1 billion back. At the very least, we're going to publicly call them out and advocate that our State Department no longer give them money. Did you see that happen? And remember, the defense that's being given by the Democrats and Biden and the media is, and all these other places, a bunch of leaders in the European Union and the leaders of the International Monetary Fund, they all knew Zlochevsky was corrupt. They all wanted Shokin fired for being corrupt and not going after corrupt oligarchs. Any of them speak up when the NABU buried the investigation into Zlochevsky? Anyone? Huh. You mean they were all silent? All of a sudden they didn't care that the U.S. gave that $1 billion. All of a sudden they didn't care that Zlochevsky walked free. So what, from just a year ago, a year prior to that, it was such a big deal that Zlochevsky was walking free that we literally couldn't give foreign aid to the Ukraine until they went after him. A year later, not only are they not concerned he still walks free, but they're like, it would be a crime for Trump to withhold aid. Now they're saying, how dare Trump maybe not give them weapons and aid? That's ridiculous. What do they say? Oh my God, if Trump doesn't give the Ukraine aid, Russia's going to move in. He endangered our national security. That's what all these people testifying are saying, right? That's what Vindman said. Oh, you're disrupting our foreign policy. It's dangerous. Russia will fill the vacuum. So we went from 1 year from we can't give aid to corrupt countries that won't go after Zlochevsky to it is now a crime and corrupt to not give aid to this corrupt country that won't go after Zlochevsky. That's where they went in 1 year. That's their version of the events. Now you have to ask yourself, what makes more sense? Their version, which, again, real simply, Biden's the point man for ending corruption in the Ukraine. They think this guy Zlochevsky and his company are corrupt. At the same time, Biden's son is getting $80,000 a month from this guy. Biden's upset that the prosecutor isn't really looking into Zlochevsky. So, in his own words, admits that he's withholding $1 billion US tax dollars in guaranteed loans until they fire that prosecutor. The prosecutor gets fired. The case is kicked to an ally of Biden and Obama in the NABU, and they bury the case. For some reason, Biden and Obama don't express their displeasure. They've moved on to no longer care about this. So Biden wanted his son's company investigated harder, didn't have a problem once the investigation got buried. That doesn't make any sense. That's their version of okay? Or does this version make more sense? Biden and Obama knew that if it became public the year before an election, where their mortal enemy, Donald Trump, would be the person that the Democrats were running against, where someone from their own administration, Hillary Clinton, was running, that it would look extremely bad for the scandal-free administration if it turns out at the exact same time they were withholding billions of dollars in tax benefits, or billions of tax dollars to a foreign country, congressionally approved foreign aid, at the exact same time they were withholding it because they said this guy was corrupt, Biden's son was being paid by that corrupt guy. They didn't like that. They didn't want that information coming out. Now, maybe Shokin was corrupt, or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was slow-walking the investigation, or maybe he wasn't. But how would Biden and Obama know? All they knew was, there's an investigation to Burisma, here's the guy that's leading it. They didn't know what was going on specifically with that investigation. If they did, then that proves they were corruptly involved in an ongoing investigation into Joe Biden's son's company, which is corrupt in its own right. So all they knew was, on paper, this guy Shokin's in charge of the investigation. We don't like that. So we're going to publicly tell the Ukraine, hey, till this Shokin guy's out, you ain't getting a dime. That's $1 billion you stand to lose. This is according to Biden's own words. The Ukraine says, hey, we don't have to listen to you. You're not president. Biden says, call him. That's Obama's decision too. He's backing me on this. Now, why would Biden have to, why would they say, hey, we don't have to listen to you if they were going to fire Shokin anyways? Because that's the other thing you keep hearing from the left. Oh, Shokin was corrupt. They were going to fire him anyways. Biden's quid pro quo had nothing to do with that. Biden says they push back. No, we're not going to fire him. You're not the boss. Yes, I am. I'm leaving in 6 hours. Call Obama. He'll tell you. Okay, we'll fire him. So they didn't care. It's not that they knew that Shokin was... You don't have to prove that they knew Shokin was really investigating them or he was slow-walking it. All they know is, on paper, we know this is the guy in charge of the investigation. They force him to be fired, and then, coincidentally, it goes to the very agency that they've had bury cases for them in the past. And coincidentally, they bury the case. Boy, that makes more sense than Obama and Biden wanted Biden's son investigated harder. That explains why Obama and Biden, who thought it was so important to take down Zlochevsky, they conditioned $1 billion in aid on it, why they weren't furious when ultimately Zlochevsky was let go with a slap on the wrist. What version of those stories makes more sense? I know which one makes more sense to me. And here's the kicker. Here's the cherry on top, right? I don't even have to prove that the version I just gave you is the definitive version. All I need to prove is there's reason to investigate. That's it. If there's reason to investigate, then Trump did nothing wrong. I don't care if he did offer a quid pro quo, which he didn't. That's it. It's that simple. Now, I'm not even getting into tons of crazier more details. For example, the testimony of the fire prosecutor Shokin, who in court documents claims he was told by the president of the Ukraine, Poroshenko, look, man, you have to drop this investigation into Burisma, who claims that he actually had seized assets from companies connected to Burisma, or from people connected to Burisma, who claims that he specifically had lined up to interview Hunter Biden. Or the fact that we have an interim prosecutor, Severick, who claims that the lawyers for Burisma, basically Hunter Biden's company's defense lawyers, admitted to him that they knew U.S. officials were lying when they said Shokin was corrupt. That actually, Shokin was aggressively pursuing the investigation. Or how about this that we found out today, thanks to Solomon's reporting again. USAID, which is the biggest agency that gives out foreign aid, sought to enter in cooperation with Burisma in some of their exploits and some of the aid being given to the gas industry in the Ukraine. A whistleblower by the name of George Kent, I believe was his name, actually had to squash this because he said, wait a minute, Burisma's corrupt. So people in Obama's State Department, at the exact same time that they were calling Burisma and its owner Zlochevsky corrupt, were trying to work in partnership with them. And at the same time, we're withholding $1 billion to the Ukraine, claiming that Burisma's corrupt. We need to fire Shokin to really investigate Burisma. Then why are you entering into a partnership with them? Oh, and it turns out that we have emails that show that those same defense attorneys for Burisma I was just talking about reached out to the Obama State Department 2 weeks before Biden's quid pro quo saying, can you help us bury this investigation into us? All just a coincidence, I'm sure. But that stuff's all complicated. I get it. You don't even have to go into that. All you need to know is this. Did we have a high-ranking official in this country threaten to withhold U.S. tax dollars until a prosecutor that was looking into his family's business was fired? Yep. Okay, that warrants an investigation. Doesn't mean that he's necessarily guilty of anything. Doesn't mean his son's necessarily guilty of anything. But it warrants an investigation. Meanwhile, wanting to have that investigation is itself a crime that requires an investigation. Do you see how stupid this is? Remember, Schiff and Pelosi have both said a quid pro quo wasn't necessary. That the real crime is seeking to get evidence of crimes from foreign countries about your opponents. We know that's exactly what the Obama administration did with the UK, with Australia, with Christopher Steele, with the Kremlin officials that were his sources. When they were looking to get evidence of possible crimes Trump committed, I don't recall the media or the Democrats saying, "Whoa, Obama, you can't do that. That's your opponent." We know that that's what 3 Democratic senators did when they wrote a letter to the Ukraine in 2018 saying, "Hey, Ukraine, you have to keep cooperating and sending evidence about Trump and people connected to him to the Mueller investigation." We know that's exactly what Adam Schiff did when he thought he was talking to Russians that had nude photos of Trump and other compromising information and evidence of crimes that Trump may have been committing, and said it sounds great, he would love to get that evidence. And furthermore, that means that in the process of this impeachment inquiry, if anyone from Schiff or any of the Democrats talks to anyone in the Ukraine to see what they feel about what was going on with Trump and whether he issued a quid pro quo, that's them seeking evidence of crimes from Trump from a foreign country, and therefore they need to be investigated. Do you see how stupid this is? Oh, by the way, we know that at the same time that this whistleblower complaint came out, the Atlantic Council funded a trip partially paid for by George Soros, that's where the Atlantic Council comes from, for a staffer from Adam Schiff to go to the Ukraine and talk to officials in the Ukraine. Well, wait a minute. I thought talking with officials in foreign countries about evidence of possible crimes of your opponents was a crime. Isn't that what the entire impeachment deal's about, Schiff? It's just like with the Russia garbage, right? I might not be the smartest person in the world. And you've heard me say this over and over again if you watch this channel. I don't care. There are people that disagree with me. I have no problem with that. Tons of friends that are huge Democrats that hate Trump. That's fine. I don't leave politics, cause me to dislike people personally. I'm a capitalist. I dislike socialism. I have friends that are huge socialists. That's fine. We disagree. I could still respect them. We just disagree. But what I can't stand are hypocrites. Either it's illegal to get evidence of crimes from a foreign country on your opponent, or it's not. It's that simple. Either it's illegal to try to get dirt in your opponent from a foreign government, or it's not. That's it. The Russia investigation. Don Jr.'s guilty. Oh, he committed treason. Oh, he's going to prison because he set up a meeting with a Russian lawyer that said she had dirt from Russians on Trump, or on Hillary. Remember that? He's guilty. That's a crime. You can't try to get dirt from a foreign country on your opponent. That's a crime. Okay. Well, that's what the DNC and Hillary did. They paid Fusion GPS that hired a foreign spy to get dirt from more foreign people connected to the Kremlin against Trump. Except unlike Don Jr., they actually got the dirt and they actually used it. Oh, no, that's not a crime. What are you talking about? Now, if you say, yep, what Don Jr. did was a crime and what Hillary and the DNC did was a crime as well, I disagree with you, but at least I could respect, hey, you're being consistent. If you think blackface is a reason for you to lose your job, I disagree. But if you say, I don't care if you're on the left or right, that's a reason to lose your job, at least you're consistent. I could respect that. Not, well, it's okay when someone on my side does it, but not when someone on your side does it. I have no respect for that position. That's why I said, if you watched the week that this Ukraine crap started coming out, the day before the whistleblower complaint came out, I said, if we had real journalists, they would be out there publicly asking every single Democrat, what exactly do you think would constitute an impeachable offense by Trump in this phone call? Outline exactly what it is. Because the problem is, once you let it come out, no two situations in life ever are exactly 100% the same. So every single time they go, oh, no, the specifics of exactly what Trump did, that's guilty. But this, when 99% of the same thing was done by the Democrats or Hillary, the intel community, that's totally cool. So, failing to file properly and having FARA violations, when Paul Manafort did that with the Podesta group, with the exact same pro-Russian voices lobbying for them to the exact same Americans, literally working together with the same people, they argue, oh, no, Podesta group just needs to retroactively file paperwork, but Manafort needs to go to prison. Because it's slightly different. There's a slight difference. If trying to get evidence of crimes in your opponent from the Ukrainian government is a crime, then it's a crime when those 3 Democratic senators did it. It's a crime when Adam Schiff tried to get evidence of crimes from Russia when he thought he was talking to Russians when it was prank callers on the phone. That's a crime. Yeah, I hear you, Mike. Right. And I might as well talk about that, actually, Mike. So I'm on a place called Above Top Secret, and I'm on some other message boards as well, where I discuss this stuff. And again, there are people, I think that I have a good enough reputation on Above Top Secret that I say routinely, some of my favorite posters on there are people that routinely disagree with me. People that don't like Trump. That's fine. That's great. But those ones are consistent, mostly. And I believe they're honest. And they're willing to say, if you make a point, they'll be like, okay, I get that, but I still feel this way because of X. That's fair. We're not all going to agree on everything. And by the way, I said this in my last live stream. There are legitimate reasons to dislike Trump. I get it. That's fine. But routinely what I've been seeing happening is this. I'll do a bunch of research or I'll put together an argument. And people, I'll put up a big thing on it, and will be the response to it. Yeah, those are all lies. You're stupid. And then a week later, if I bring something up that I typed again, they'll say, that was debunked, remember? What are you talking? I'm stupid, those are all lies. What specifically did I say that was a lie? What specifically is wrong? Nothing. They just say, oh, you're saying Joe Biden's guilty. He did this to free his son. Prove it. Prove it. I'm not saying that. Did you hear me say that? I think I said like 7 times in this video alone, I'm not saying that I have proof that Joe Biden's guilty or that Hunter Biden's guilty of a crime. All I'm saying is the situation warrants an investigation. My opinion is I don't trust myself to say people should be removed from office or criminally punished, etc., etc., or we shouldn't even bother with investigations based on my personal beliefs of what their motivations were. That's not me saying that. That's the other side. They're saying, I pronounce someone's motivations innocent or guilty, therefore we should have investigations based on my feelings. I think our government, our judicial system, our system of governments shouldn't rely on people's gut feelings. It should rely on, here are the situations that warrant investigations, here are situations that don't warrant investigations. If you say no investigation into Biden is necessary because I know deep in his heart the fact that his son's company was being looked at by that prosecutor didn't factor into his decision, that's ridiculous. You have no way of knowing that. There should at least be a cursory investigation where they sit down and interview the relevant parties. Meanwhile, the same people that think that say, and I know Trump's guilty. I don't know. It's not like he said, I'm doing this just to benefit myself in the 2020 election, but we know that's what it was about. We know that's what it was about. So he's guilty, remove him from office. And you see this on simpler things, right? Make America great again. Wow, that's a racist slogan. That's racism. It's just racism. Trump's racist. Make America great. What, like back to the time of Jim Crow? Is that what you're talking about? America was never great, right? Remember that? Oh, well, here's a clip of 1996 of Bill Clinton using the slogan, Make America Great Again. Oh, well, Bill Clinton was a decent guy. That wasn't racism. When you start off and say your opinion of someone, you say, I know this person is shitty, therefore guilty. You're leaving your bias and partisanship influence you too much. Exactly. Facts, not feelings. I felt that Obama, I won't say hated this country, but he thought this country, he was a cultural Marxist. He thought the U.S. was oppressors. The reason he gave all that money to Iran was he feels the U.S. is the bad guy and Iran's the victim, which is disgusting. Does that mean that we need a no-holds-barred investigation on Obama based on my feelings? Now, real quick, just to talk about this whistleblower. I'm so sick and tired of the media and the Democrats claiming, oh, we have to keep this whistleblower, his identity needs to be protected. Trump, Don Jr. outed the whistleblower. No, he didn't. The name was out all over the place. But the same people saying that about, oh, the whistleblower's life would be in danger. Not only did they publicly report on whistleblowers under the Obama administration, they were all but silent to the fact that Barack Obama prosecuted more whistleblowers than all presidents before him combined. Do you remember the media saying, oh, he's putting these whistleblowers' lives in danger? No. Not only was he outing their names, he was throwing them in jail. Now, how would you feel if you're a whistleblower, if you're Edward Snowden, right? And all the crap he went through. Actually, regardless of what you think of him, he took a big risk. He wasn't like this celebrity, quote, whistleblower that's a hero and, oh my God, we have to protect him and what an American patriot and a hero. That wasn't the treatment Snowden was getting from the elite class. And there are tons more. Jack Kirikow, I think is one of their names. I saw him on Jimmy Dore's show. He's also on Tucker. There was a guy on Tucker last night. These people faced hard time in jail over blowing the whistle on outing things like improper surveillance of U.S. citizens or all sorts of corruption within the intel community. Whistleblowing is when you are taking a risk because you see that people above you, the people that have authority over you, are doing corrupt things. And you tried to go through the proper channels and it was ineffective. So you blew the whistle. That's what the whistleblower protection's designed for. Not, I heard secondhand gossip and I didn't like Trump's foreign policy. That's not whistleblowing. Isn't it odd that all of the intel community whistleblowers under Obama were treated completely different? And all of their whistleblowing was either against the Obama administration or specifically against the heads of the intel departments. So if you blow the whistle on, say, John Brennan or the head of the CIA or the head of the NSA or the head of the FBI, if you blow the whistle on corruption going there, you get prosecuted, your name gets outed, you get ran through the ringer. But if you work for those intel agencies that are all ran by people that hate Trump and you whistleblow against Trump, you're a celebrity. So I have to believe the media. Now all of a sudden they care about whistleblowers. Didn't care when Obama was prosecuting them. I mean, it's transparently garbage. Everyone can see it. Who are some of the witnesses? You know, we keep hearing about these witnesses. Oh, you know, Morrissey. Morrissey admitted in his testimony, well, he heard about the quid pro. He didn't actually hear the phone call, but he heard about it in the New York Times. Here we go again. How many times will the mainstream news, the whistleblower in his report cited all sorts of mainstream outlets as proof of Trump's corruption? Morrissey cites it as proof of corruption. The FBI cited it in their FISA warrant. They cited Michael Iskoff at Yahoo News. The same corrupt. People say all the time, yes, we know the media is corrupt, but you know, they're allowed to be corrupt. It's not just that they're corrupt and we can choose whether to listen to them or not. They're actually being used for a coup against our president. Why in the hell would I take the same people's word that buried the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and somehow prove that Trump did something illegal? How could anyone that's remotely objective look at these agencies, these so-called news agencies in the mainstream media, and think that they're not corrupt beyond belief at this point? Yet they're used as evidence of Trump's corruption? Everyone should be outraged. Imagine if a whistleblower, someone overheard Obama possibly said something. Imagine this. when Obama's doing his Iran deal, a whistleblower says, hey, I heard through the grapevine that maybe Obama was talking to the leader of Iran and was like, hey, I hate America and I want you to have this money to give to a bunch of terrorists. I heard that. And then the media said, oh my God, this guy's a whistleblower. That's great. Don't say his name. Don't out his name. Where's your proof that he said that? Well, I heard the whistleblower says, Sean Hannity said it. Here's my Fox News document that I saw. I didn't hear the call from Obama, but Sean Hannity said it. And I work in the CIA, so I'm a whistleblower because I'm repeating what Sean Hannity said. Do you think the media would have took that shit seriously? Of course not. But that's where we're at. Oh my God, Michael Isikoff at Yahoo News said it? Of course, later we found out that the source, you see, they used Michael Isikoff to say, see, this proves Christopher Steele's right because Michael Isikoff found the same things in his reporting. Only to later find out that Michael Isikoff's source was Christopher Steele. Oh, we got to listen more. So he read this New York Times newspaper and it discouraged him. He was worried. That's his proof. Therefore, there must have been a quid pro quo. I mean, the guy read the New York Times. It's that simple, right? Never mind, we can see the transcript for ourselves. Oh, but the transcript isn't verbatim. They lied with the transcript. Think of how stupid this claim is, okay? So it's been admitted that dozens of people sat in with this guy. Number one, here's what you have to believe. That Donald Trump had dozens of people sitting in with this call. Many of which he didn't know, right? He didn't personally know a lot of these people, right? Yeah, I know, I don't swear that often, but... So Trump's about to engage in this incredibly unethical, illegal crime by asking for a quid pro quo to investigate Biden to help his chances in the 2020 election. He's about to ask for that in the phone, right? With all these people. He could have said, hey, I'm going to take this call in my office. I don't want anyone listening in. But he didn't. Instead, he commits the crime in front of dozens of people. Then a whistleblower who didn't hear the call blows the whistle. We call that a liar, a gossiper. I would call a leaker. So then, okay, now we got it. Trump does what they didn't expect. He releases the transcript of the call. Now the argument being made is, well, we can't just look at the transcript, right? Because it might not be accurate. It's not verbatim. So now you also have to believe, in addition to Trump committed this crime in front of dozens of people, that these same dozens of people are all but maybe one or two covering up, allowing this corruption to occur. Because they know that the transcript's a lie. In reality, they all heard Trump say on the phone, bury Biden for me. Make up things. Remember what Schiff said? You know, when he was just making stuff up, he said it was satire. You know, Trump was on the phone saying, make up any dirt you can against Biden. We're taking him down so I win the 2020 election. That's what was really said. But these dozens of people are lying to cover up for Trump. That's what they want you to believe now. Never mind that Volcker came out and said that transcript's accurate. There was no quid pro quo. Nope, we have to believe people that didn't hear the phone call. They know more about what was on the phone call than the actual people that were on the phone call. How the hell does that make sense? That's what the Democrats want you to believe. Well, Sondland donated to the Trump campaign, and now he says he has a problem with it. He didn't say he heard a quid pro quo. He said he talked specifically to Trump, who said, no, I don't want a quid pro quo. He was just worried because of his personal opinion. I don't care if he donated to Trump or not. He doesn't get to decide U.S. foreign policy. He wasn't elected. Zelensky says there wasn't a quid pro quo. The Ukrainians that agreed to the investigation of Biden and to Ukrainian election interference didn't even know the money had been taken off the table during the phone call. And the money was sent eventually. So there was no quid and there was no quo. The money got sent and there was no favor given. And the Ukrainians didn't even know the money was at risk. But a bunch of people that didn't hear the phone call, that just heard secondhand gossip, that admitted, like Vindman, oh, how dare he upset U.S. foreign policy. He is U.S. foreign policy. You dolt. Just because you're an unelected bureaucrat that wants forever foreign regime change wars doesn't mean that your voice is more important than the damn person that was elected. And all of this, the thing that pisses me off the most is all of these Democrats that were with me being against the Iraq war, saying we're tired of the corrupt intel agencies lying us into foreign regime change wars over and over, lying to us about the xenophobia. We have to be at constant war with Russia. Now we're told we have to believe them. I've had people tell me on threads, oh, but who are you going to trust? Somebody who's only elected for 4 years? Or the people that are there all the time? They're the real heroes. They're the real people that should be running the government. That's where we're at. The once party of peace, the same party that had the Bruce Springsteens and the Green Days, Punk Against Bush. I was at those concerts. Rage Against the Machine. All the entertainment celebrities. The war is bad. Protest the war in Iraq. Now we have to listen to the same warmongers that pushed us into that because they didn't like Trump's foreign policy, and they're the ones who should have the say. I don't know how this doesn't upset every single American, regardless if you like Trump or not. But to see, and again, you heard me say this last week, I get it. I get that there are CNN and the New York Times and all those garbage people. Yes, we knew they were pro-establishment. But when I see people that I know are good people who happen to dislike Trump, that's fine. Cheering for a deep state coup. How can you be so blind? And in the same breath, they'll be like, can you believe what these warmongers are saying about Tulsi Gabbard? How dare you? How dare she, by the way, voted for the impeachment inquiry? Tulsi says, when they're smearing me as a pro-Russian asset or complaining that I had talks with Assad, that's outrageous. How dare they? How dare they? But yeah, I vote for the impeachment inquiry into Trump. Yes, I do that. Makes sense. We now know, by the way, that the ambassador, Yovanovitch, that was Obama's ambassador, the same woman that was accused of, under the Obama administration, of personally telling the prosecutor, Letsenko, here's some names that you're not allowed to prosecute, at the behest of the Obama administration. Now there are credible allegations that she was using her position at state to investigate journalists that were pro-Trump, such as John Solomon. Wait a minute, I thought the media cared about journalists. I thought the media were upset when government authorities were improperly spying on journalists. Nope. They didn't care when Obama did it to James Rosen. They don't care when it's John Solomon being done to him. Nope, don't care at all. They're more concerned about, if Jim Acosta acts like a buffoon and gets kicked out of the press pool, then that's an assault on our free press. But a pro-Obama leftover from state spying on, using her position to spy on reporters in the United States, no problem at all. In addition to that, we now know that she perjured herself. Now remember, lying to Congress is a big deal, right? That's why Cohen's going to jail. Lied to Congress, it's a huge deal. Well, thanks to Tucker Carlson last night, we know that there was an email sent 2 days after the whistleblower complaint was filed from people in Schiff's office. Or, I don't know, I don't want to say that. At least people in Democrats' office. I think it was Schiff's office, but it was at least Democrats that were staffers that were looking for information to possibly use for impeachment. We now know that they reached out to her, and they said, hey, we'd like to know, do you have anything to say to us? Yovanovitch, in testimony to Ratcliffe, I believe, was specifically asked, did you talk to anyone about this? She says, no. I didn't respond to them. We now have her email saying, sounds great, would love to talk to you. Now, what do you call it when someone sends you an email and then you address that? That is you responding to them, right? So she did respond. She was asked point blank, did you respond? Under penalty of perjury, in front of Congress, she said, no, I did not respond. And now we know, yes, she did respond. That's called perjury. That's lying to Congress. That's why Cohen's going to jail. But this woman's a hero. Oh my goodness, she's a super big time hero. We can't put her in jail. Just like when Clapper lied to Congress. Does the NSA spy on Americans, collect data on Americans? Not wittingly. Remember that? Lie. See, what's he doing? Oh, he's now special guest on CNN and MSNBC. Remember, every single time, here's an alleged crime. Someone on this side of the ledger connected to Trump does it, throw the book at them. Someone on the other side of the ledger, pro-establishment or pro-Hillary Democrat or intel agency does it. No problem. No crime. No need to charge. Comey, he lied to Congress. Who'd you give your memos to? Who'd you discuss your memos with? Just my one friend. It turns out it was 3 friends. Oh, well, I didn't think it was important. I thought they were lawyers, so. That's a lie. It's outrageous. So that's where we're at with the coup investigation. You know, again, for those of you that just tuned in, please check out my video this morning. It's real simple. I encourage you. It's very difficult. There's so many names. There's so much convolution going on. There's testimony being leaked out. It's being done in closed doors, etc. It's real simple. You break it down real simple. If an executive official uses tax dollars to force a prosecutor to be fired who happened to be looking into a family member's business, should there be an investigation? Yes, every time, period. End of statement. But a bunch of media people said that there doesn't need to be investigation. Doesn't matter. But some EU people, some people in the UK and France said there didn't need to be an investigation. Doesn't matter. That's what Biden did. And that means that Trump is not only right to want an investigation, it is his duty as the person in charge with enforcing our laws under the Constitution to pursue an investigation into that. That's it. It's that simple. Everyone who says, but no, because the IMF and everybody knew Shokin was guilty. It's irrelevant. They're making excuses. They know if Trump did the same thing, they would demand an investigation. It wouldn't matter if Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage and the president of India. It wouldn't matter if they all said, yeah, the prosecutor Trump had fired that was looking into his son. Yeah, he was corrupt. Yeah, I saw that the DNC did leak. Eric Charmella, that's how you say it, its name. By the way, my live stream last week was all about him. I guess I leaked his name too. Probably be disbanded from YouTube, which is a reason to follow me on BitChute if you haven't. I'm going to try to branch out more on those two as well. Biggest political scandal in the history of our country. The only thing that even comes close to it is our next story, which maybe is bigger, which is the Epstein story. Two months and 3 weeks ago, I believe I did a video where I said, the title of my video was something like this: can we stop pretending that the FBI is going to actually do something to investigate the death of Epstein? Or his co-conspirators in raping underagers? Can we stop? Can we cut the charade? That's what that video was about. Now, where are we? 2 months and 3 weeks later. Remember, this is the official FBI story. Here's the official narrative. Here's what all the media is going with a very few handful. This is what we have to believe. You're a crazy conspiracy theorist that's dangerous and hurting this country if you don't believe the following. Epstein tried to kill himself. He's put on suicide watch. They took him off a day before he killed himself. They put 2 inept guards that fell asleep on him. They took all cameras out of his cells. The cameras that were on the outside of his cells both malfunctioned at the same time. He managed to strangle himself on a bed that was lower than him. That's their version. That's the version you have to believe. That's what you're told. You're a conspiracy theorist if you don't believe that. Maybe you could buy, okay, some crazy inept people. The guy tried to kill himself, but for whatever reason, 2 weeks later, they said, it was a fluke. We'll take him off suicide watch. Maybe you could believe that. Maybe you could even believe that they put 2 inept guards that fell asleep that night on him. Remember, this would mean Epstein, in that 2 week span, didn't try to kill himself. Now, Epstein had no way of knowing that these guards had fallen asleep, right? But he just happened. He didn't try to kill himself in that whole 2 week span. He just so happened to pick the 1 second that would have worked. Not only when the guards fell asleep, but when the cameras malfunctioned. That's the instance that he decided to kill himself. What incredible. What are the chances? What are the chances of the guards falling asleep at the same time that 2 different cameras malfunctioned? That's already astronomical, the chances. But that being the 1 instance at where Epstein tried to kill himself and succeeded in killing himself. 1 in a trillion? But that's what we had to believe. Then that the FBI coroner said, yeah, no foul play, right? It was suicide. But wait a minute. Then we have a doctor that was hired by Epstein's family that said, I've never seen a suicide with injuries consistent with it. Looks like a homicide to me. You hear the news talking about it? The only place you hear about it's right here. Online. From non-mainstream people. Not just me, I'm not saying that. Tons of people. I love the new meme. Epstein didn't kill himself. Great. I saw beer companies stamping it on the bottom of their beers. Great. Because average people care. This might come as a shock to the establishment, to the elites that control our country, but it turns out Republican, Democrat, unpolitical at all, 99% of us regular people, regardless of our political affiliations or religious affiliations or ideologies or even sexual preferences, 99% of us regular people, we don't like child rapists. I know that's hard for them to understand. And we don't like that they're covering up for it. Because all these people that run our world are involved with this shit. It literally makes my teeth cringe. The most heinous crime possible. They'll run out and repeat any garbage allegation about Kavanaugh being a gang rapist or kids with red hats being terrible racists. They don't care. But child sex trafficking, well, you know. Now we get to the story this week. Now I'm talking. So you had none of it. We know it. And I'm talking Fox News too. You hear any of them talking about, like, this is garbage? That guy didn't kill himself. You hear any of that? Nope. Maybe a little blip. One of the biggest stories in the history of our country might get a 30-second blip if you're lucky. The guy didn't kill himself. So Project Veritas comes out, okay? And there's a lot to say. I get it. There are people that don't like Veritas. They're definitely showmen. They're definitely doing stuff to increase their brand as well. I get that, okay? That sucks. I don't like that that's the way the world is. But if I'm honest, I do the same thing. I want people to watch my channel. So you hype it up, you advertise. I get it. You might not like that. I get it. I'm not going to really hold that against them. I think sometimes Veritas oversells their stories. But most of them I find interesting and credible, and they're mostly ignored by the mainstream. Because, oh, it's Project Veritas. That's exactly what the mainstream media does. That's exactly what the establishment does. They are the gatekeepers. They have a hegemony on the power and total control over the information flow. And so when they hear information that they can't deal with or that disproves things they believe, they just say, you can't trust the source. You can't trust the source. Meanwhile, they're burying stories. They're not holding truth to power like they claim. They are hiding the truth for the powerful. That's what they do. So, Veritas releases this video, and I know some people are disappointed. If you're someone who watches my channel, you probably knew everything Veritas said, right? You knew it's probably garbage, and Epstein probably did kill himself, and you knew that mainstream media buried stories into Epstein for years. You knew that. And I get that. I think that, I don't know if it was specifically written this way, but I think there was an intentional false impression given that Veritas had like a whistleblower that had knowledge of Epstein's murder. Like firsthand knowledge that was going to blow the whistle. And that wasn't the case. So I get being let down. If you thought, holy cow, this guard, for example, maybe it's a guard, or it's someone from NBC that's like, look, man, I had interviewed the guard that said they saw someone break into Epstein's cell. Like, yes, that would have been a bigger bombshell. I get it. And they certainly left it ambiguous that your mind went there. I get that. And if you're upset with Veritas about that, fine. But that doesn't mean that this wasn't an important story. Not important because it told me or you something you didn't know, but important because it proves that these people at the mainstream networks knew about Epstein. Now, we know they knew, but now we hear it in their own voice. Because that's the problem. I say this all the time. Anytime they want to accuse you of something or Trump of something, 1% is all they need. If there's a 99% chance it's wrong, doesn't matter. All they need, Covington kids are racist. Bam. That's it. That's all they needed. Doesn't matter that if they'd have done any due diligence, they'd have realized it was garbage. All they needed was that slightest kernel. That's it. Go. But when it comes to the establishment people or the people they're defending, you need 99.999% proof. So they'll run any sex assault allegation against Trump or Kavanaugh. But when it comes to Epstein, oh, no, despite the fact we have photos and we have witness testimony and all that, nope, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. So to hear them admit, it takes all doubt away. So Amy Robach, if those of you missed it, came out and was on a hot mic, and she said, basically, she's mad because, just like Project Veritas, and again, I don't hold people that, I am not that upset about this. It's a career, you know? If you play football and your team wins, that's great. But you'd like to be the one who gets the big touchdown. Well, it's the same with journalists. Yeah, you want the truth to come out, but if you're the one who breaks the big story, that's even better. So if you did work on a big story that you thought was important, and then your network buried it, and then 3 years later, you see that story become huge, you're upset. You say, this sucks. You know, I broke that story, and it would have been important, one, if you're a real journalist, which I don't know about Amy Robach. I think that Tucker Carlson's right when he says this. She doesn't come off looking bad in this story to me. Only her statement, her capitulating statement after the fact is kind of wimpy, but I get it. She's just trying to keep her job. She's probably on thin ice due to no fault of her own. But she comes off looking good. She comes off as someone who's rightly outraged. One, because she wanted the credit, because she broke the story, and probably two, because I get the vibe she's not too happy with the child rapist. And she'd have liked that information been made public. Isn't that why most people, theoretically, that's why you get into journalism. You want to hold the powerful to account. That story was the most heinous crime you could talk about, and it connected the most powerful people in the world. That's a dream for a journalist. But it was buried. And she admits, I don't buy for a minute that Epstein killed himself. So it gives us a public admission from an insider that they are burying stories about Epstein, and that mainstream journalists, they don't buy this garbage suicide story either, yet they're not reporting on it because their networks won't let them. Why? I wonder why ABC would want this story buried. Let's see, who's the big dog at ABC? Who's their highest paid talent? George Stephanopoulos. Now listen, you've heard me say here, people that had connections to Epstein before it became public knowledge, that he most likely was engaged in child sex trafficking, I'm not going to judge. Now, I know what people say. Oh, so you're saying you don't judge Trump because, oh, yeah, it's just a defense to defend Trump. No, that's not all it is. I also defended Chuck Schumer. Remember the big story that came out and said Schumer got money donated from Epstein? Yeah, in like 97. So what? No one knew what Epstein was up to in 97. Chuck Schumer did nothing wrong accepting that money. Nothing. You think I have any love for Chuck Schumer? No. But I'm just being fair. Even if you heard rumors, maybe you wouldn't go out of your way to hang out with the guy, but if you're at a club with him, hey, how's it going? I'm sure people hear rumors about people all the time. But if you're showing up to Epstein's house for parties after he gets out of prison for pleading guilty to having sex with underagers, in addition to all of the allegations about the worst stuff, the raping of underagers, the child sex trafficking, now being public, if you said, you know what, I'm going to attend this guy's dinner like George Stephanopoulos did or Katie Couric, you suck. And you deserve to be called out for that. So is it any wonder that ABC, whose top talent was literally attending a dinner with Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew after Epstein got out of prison for pleading guilty to having sex with underagers? Stephanopoulos, it was a lapse in judgment. It was a mistake. Yeah, okay. Now ABC freaked out. And all these journalists and all these celebrities, they freaked out when Trump said grab him by the P word. Locker room talk with a friend when he thought the camera was off. That was outrageous, right? But Katie Couric and who else was it? Woody Allen and George Stephanopoulos hanging out with an admitted child sex offender? No problem. No problem at all. But wait a minute, I thought they cared about victims. Believe all victims. Believe all women. Those underage girls, screw them. It is literally the calculus of the mainstream media that they care more about protecting their reputation, protecting the establishment, continuing to be allowed to be a mouthpiece for the establishment that buries truth for them. That is more important to the media than getting justice for child sex victims. Period. It's that simple. In fact, if the people that control these media outlets, your CBS, ABC, NBC, all of them, I'm sure if they knew they could say something without it ever being made public, they'd tell these victims, shut your damn mouth. We don't want to hear about it. You're jeopardizing our control over the flow of information. Shut up! Now, if someone's allegedly sexually assaulted by Trump or a Republican or some construction worker or, someone in flyover country, oh, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Leave no stone unturned. Report any allegation. Believe all women then. But when it could personally affect them, doesn't that sound familiar? Let's see. A bunch of morally proselytizing people that think they're better than you, telling you how you're garbage, how you treat women like crap, but then as soon as they get to actually have a chance to protect actual female victims, underage ones at that, the most vulnerable of them, who are assaulted by the most powerful, who have no one speaking up for them, as soon as they have the chance to actually be brave, but it might affect them financially, all of a sudden their bravery vanishes. Almost like the NBA and LeBron James. How much more money and power do the executives at ABC need? The real story, and I said this the day of, the real story here with the Veritas story wasn't even what Veritas reported. The real story was that no major media company, mainstream media company, covered that damn story that day. That was the real story. Where was Brian Stelter? He eventually came out and said something for like 20 seconds. ABC didn't say anything. NBC didn't say anything. CNN wasn't saying anything. MSNBC wasn't saying anything. Why? That's their rival. They didn't think that was important. Imagine the story if it was... Turns out that Fox News had a story that during the election of Bush versus Kerry, right before that election, it turns out they had evidence that, a wealthy conservative, the Koch brothers, were molesting children, and George Bush was connected, but they buried the story because they didn't want to implicate George Bush leading up to the election. What do you think the rest of the media would say about that? I'm old enough to remember when the National Enquirer, there was an entire investigation and people were saying we needed to impeach Trump because Trump supposedly had the guy who owned the National Enquirer buy Stormy Daniels' story and then bury it. And they said, that's election interference. A media outlet burying a story for a president, that's election interference. But ABC burying a story that would implicate Bill Clinton with child sex trafficking while his wife was, during an election, his wife was running for president? No big deal, right? That was the story. And now the story's just been expounded upon because what happened yesterday? Well, ABC thinks they found the woman who was responsible for leaking this. She now works at CBS. So they called CBS. They said, CBS, we're giving you a courtesy call. This woman leaked that story. And CBS said, all right, you're fired. And fired the woman. So these two networks, right? Hashtag believe all women. Hashtag me too. Right? Fired a woman for releasing evidence that they buried a story about a child sex trafficker assaulting women. Hashtag believe all women. But why isn't Fox, Fox has Tucker and them talk about it. Why, what about NBC? What about the New York Times? What about the Washington Post? You don't think they didn't know about the Epstein story as well? Of course they did. What are they going to do? Come out and criticize ABC only to have a whistleblower within their own organizations go, whoa, wait a minute. I brought you the Epstein story and you buried it too. Didn't want to go after Harvey Weinstein. Didn't want to go after Epstein. What do they both have in common? Oh, they're connected to establishment Democrats? And by the way, it's not just a partisan thing. They're connected to establishment Republicans, too, in some cases. And entertainment people, and scientists, and members of the royal family. I don't care what political party. Now, I get everyone's talking about, on one hand, the media's against outing a whistleblower on one hand, but in this, they're going to be for outing the whistleblower that blew the whistle on them burying this story. Well, of course, but and that's true. There's a lot of truth to that. But the media will just say, well, it's different. We're not a public official. We're a private company. We can do what we want. Their whistleblower doesn't have laws protecting them because it's just getting fired from a job. But nonetheless, it's hypocrisy. That's where we're at. Those groups that buried that Epstein story. Now remember, again, I'm just like Project Veritas, I guess. To toot my own horn a little here. Go back in late August and look at the stories, the videos I was doing about Epstein. One of the videos was about the FBI press conference, right? And the FBI held a press conference where they took questions. And you might remember it. They talked about Epstein being arrested. This was before Epstein killed himself. Heck, it was maybe early August. Anyways, it was when they finally charged Epstein. And one of the questions asked was, why did you decide to go after Epstein now? What was it that now was the time that you went after him? Yeah, John, I'm talking about the Epstein thing. Why did you decide to go after them now? And one of the things that the FBI said was, no doubt, that the media reports and investigative journalism had a lot to do with uncovering evidence. Now, I talked about, regardless of what you think about him, Mike Cernovich was critical in getting the ball rolling on this, right? Mike Cernovich was the one who filed a lawsuit to release the redacted information that came about. Because basically, here's what happened. Epstein pled guilty, and then they buried, on the condition that they bury all of this information that would have came out in his trial. Mike Cernovich sued to have that evidence released. The Miami Herald then joined that lawsuit after Cernovich started it. The FBI credited the Miami Herald, which to Cernovich's credit, he said, look, the Miami Herald did do good work as well. But it's funny they left his name out of it, which he's right. He's right to be upset about that. But anyways, forget about all that. It took, not the FBI, not an actual government investigative agency. It literally took journalists investigating Epstein to actually get him to be charged and arrested. That's admitted by the FBI. What did I say in that video back then? What did I say? I said, imagine if we actually had a real media that held truth to power. And they would have been investigated. There are stories from 2002. I saw a woman, a journalist, saying she reported on the allegations of Epstein and it was buried. Imagine if they would have actually been covering this. How many girls could have been spared? How many? And now we know. At least 3 years worth. ABC buried the story. I'd like to see them be confronted by one of these rape victims. Thanks for burying this story. I'm glad I had to suffer a rape so your ratings wouldn't fall, so you could interview the royal family, so that Hillary Clinton still had a chance to win the election. Thanks a lot. It literally almost brings tears to my eyes. It's that damn disgusting. They knew, the media knew what was going on. They didn't care that more girls would be raped at all. The FBI didn't care. No one did. They only acted because they were forced to. Because a couple journalists with guts did the right thing. And what did I say then? I said, nothing will come of this. The FBI didn't go after Epstein because they wanted to. They went after him because he had to. Because they knew once people read that Miami Herald piece, they'd be disgusted with our law enforcement for letting this guy off the hook. So they arrested him. Then they killed him. But they'll get to the bottom of it. He killed himself. But the FBI came out and said, hey, you co-conspirators, you still watch yourself. We're still going to get you. They couldn't even, their own version of events is they couldn't even protect their critical witness. If you're a rape victim of Epstein and some of the world's powerful elite that did it with him, why would you come forward now? They couldn't even protect Epstein in federal custody. You think you won't get murdered? I'm not saying that every leader we have in our country, either politically or financially, I'm not saying they're all child rapists. But there were people connected to Epstein. Not all those connected were child rapists. But this was a bad PR story. A lot of really powerful people wanted that guy dead. And now he is dead. And cameras malfunctioned. And ABC buried the story. And none of them want to talk about it. And that's the group that we're supposed to listen to when they say, oh, and Trump did something impeachable. Trump's unethical when he said grab him by the P word. Children were literally raped because you didn't do your job. And you don't care at all. And you still sit on your high horse, judging people like you're better than them. The video I've done that's got more views than any, it's really funny. I think it's still my most viewed video. It's like 4,000 views, which for me was a lot. You know what it was? It was the guy that used to be on the Cosby Show. I think he was one of the teenagers. Fox News ran a story that they linked from TMZ or somewhere where someone was going to a Trader Joe's and that actor was a cashier. He's scanning bags. And he looks like an old man now. He's old, gray, little overweight. And basically, this Fox News article that was just repeating an article was chortling like, oh, look at this guy. And I was outraged by that. I said, at least the guy's working. He's doing what he needs to feed his family, right? And one of the things I said in that video was, and by the way, if you're a journalist, you should not make fun of anyone's job. Because you are the lowest of the low. You're scumbags. You're not the free press. You ought to be ashamed. That's where we're at. So remember, and the story will get buried again. You'll still have the meme will go, Epstein didn't kill himself. You'll still have us talking about it. But we'll still, because they control the narrative so much. We're still going to, next week we'll be talking about, this New York Times article. The Washington Post says Trump, did this. Did you see what CNN said? MSNBC said this. ABC News, Stephanopoulos said this. Did you see Jake Tapper? Remember the video I did here about a month and a half ago? Where Jim Jordan's on with Jake Tapper? And Jake Tapper's getting real animated, is he? How dare you go after Hunter Biden like that? How dare you go after Joe Biden? That's a lie. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if he had that kind of passion for child sex victims? He's silent on that. That's where we're at. By the way, these same media, the Clintons and the media, right? What do they all say? We need to ban fake news on social media. They want, you remember CNN said? What did Cuomo say? You can't read the WikiLeaks. You have to come to us. It's illegal for you to read them. You have to come to us. That's how they want it. So that they can bury the stories they don't want you hearing. They don't want you knowing. They don't want you thinking. I mean, they literally want you to believe that 2 guards fell asleep and 2 cameras malfunctioned at the exact moment that Epstein tried to kill himself. They want you to believe that he was the most important prisoner in the history of this country, probably. He had tried to kill himself, yet no one was watching him. The cameras happened to malfunction. Inept guards were being put on him. He killed himself despite the fact that an actual coroner that's well-respected says none of these injuries are consistent with any suicide I've ever seen. They want you to believe that. They think you're a terrible person if you don't. They want you to forget about the fact that they buried the story into Epstein. At the exact same time they were burying the story into Epstein, Me Too movement was full steam ahead. They were going after Trump for anything they could, weren't they? At the exact same time. They're talking about, Women's Month and, protect the women and, the kids and when they actually had a chance to stand up and do something to help, they did nothing. They buried the story. That's worse than nothing. They participated in facilitating the rape of children. But they say, we can't have any competition. People like Rob I'm dangerous. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm a terrible person. I must be a liar. Trust them. Go to them for the news. Yes, and the same news that tells you Trump needs to be impeached. Trump's terrible. We got to, you can't, to even question the intel community, to even question them, it's corrupt. All right. So I guess talk about something fun here for a minute that kind of relates to that. And that was the excellent video of Donald Trump Jr. on The View. Sometimes Trump, full disclosure, sometimes Trump's tweets or the way he acts, sometimes it gets a little overbearing to me. I don't care when he's going after Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. That's fine. Do what you got to do, right? No problem. But like Rosie O'Donnell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's not that I mind what he's saying. It's just that I'm like, dude, that's beneath you. Who cares what they say or how their shows are doing? You're the president of the United States, dude, you know. But one of the things that I find hilarious is this sort of the same mainstream people that are covering up for child sex traffickers. These same people all universally agree, the way Trump talks. Trump could be a unifier. If Trump would just, behave presidential, he could be a unifier. And maybe there's some truth to that. But at the end of the day, days like yesterday, when seeing what Don Jr. did in The View, it reminds you of like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. See, what the mainstream and what the established from 2003 to 2007, 2008, and I then coached and judged debate after that. And debate was, if universities are left-wing, debate community is the left of the left. I mean, it's way out there. I saw stuff in 2004 that we ended up seeing on campuses 10 years later, It was nothing to, reject all whiteness, the patriarchy, all of this cultural Marxism crap, it's just insanity. That was going on in the debate. Hey, what's up, Rational? So, I was seeing all this crap, and I actually got effective in debating a lot of this, and it was because I just didn't put up with the crap, right? What they want you to do, someone like me would walk into a round. This is real. This really happened frequently. You would walk into a round, and let's say the topic was farm subsidies, and be like, our plan is the United States federal government should reduce farm subsidies. Reason one is because, it's wasting tax money, blah, 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 blah. Reason two is it makes us artificially competitive with farmers in third world countries, and so those farmers never develop their own crops, and that leads to, Africans being reliant on U.S. subsidies, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, And my speech, the other team stands up and says, why haven't you acknowledged your privilege as a white man? What does this have to do with subsidies? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And the debate would not be about subsidies whatsoever. It'd be about me being white. I got to the point where I would just be like, yeah, stop the debate. I quit. I'm not going to let you call me racist. If you want to have an honest discussion about race, we can have it. I'm not a racist. I'm not going to put up with it. And I would do good because once you fight back, regardless of what your method is, they lose their power. They don't know how to relate to that. They want you to say, I'm so sorry for being white. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You're right. I have all this privilege as a white man. Please. What can I do? Great masters. That's what they want. And you see it all the time. Anytime a comedian gets in crap for upsetting the SJWs, please, I'm sorry. It's never good enough. Grovel more. Keep groveling. The ones that get away with it are those like Dave Chappelle. They're like, I ain't apologizing. Sorry. Don't care. Trump is the first politician that's done that. And they don't know how to handle it. You probably heard me say this before. I don't think Trump's playing 4D chess. I think Trump shoots from the hip most of the time. He's got a gut feeling, he just goes with it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But the reason that it works out more than it doesn't isn't because he's planned his move carefully 5 moves ahead. It's because the people he's going against are so inept, it's pathetic. They don't know how to respond to someone that's like, I'm going to punch back. You going to punch me? You come after me? I'll go after you. They don't know how to respond. They're so used to being pro-establishment and everyone they go after just being a punching bag. Oh, we don't like this Republican. I'm sorry, I'm not a racist. I'm sorry. Oh, no, the trans rights or whatever. Yes, I'm sorry. Please, just accept me. Please do what you can to accept me. That was the Republican Party, and that's still a lot of the Republican Party. Trump says, nah, screw that. Maybe he goes overboard sometimes, whatever your feelings are on it, but at least he's fighting back. Nowhere is that better epitomized because it rubs off on his children as well than Don Jr. on The View. Which if you haven't watched it, you just have to watch it. I mean, it is literally, watch the 3-minute clip that's going around. It's 3 minutes. It is mind-blowing. these hypocrites in Hollywood, in the media, in politics, they judge. Over and over and over. They're better than all of us. They're better than everyone. And they never have anyone take it to their face and say, shut up, no you're not. You're more disgusting than anyone. And that's what Don Jr. did. Your dad said grab him by the P word. Oh yeah, you dressed up in blackface, Joy Bear. Oh. Whoopi says, I'm black. I don't think what she did was blackface. Oh yeah, Whoopi? Remember your boy Roman Polanski that anally raped a 13-year-old girl? And you said, well, that's not rape. And you and hundreds of other people in Hollywood signed a petition for the U.S. to drop the conviction of him for that? Then you come on your stupid show and you pretend to care about women? Thank God someone finally said it to those arrogant pieces of garbage. Now, I don't care about Joy Bear's blackface. In fact, I did a video about blackface, which if you type in my name in blackface, it's on YouTube. It was when the Ralph Northam things was coming out. I defended Ralph Northam. And I talked about there's nuances between different types of blackface. There is literally minstrel blackface. Then there could be wearing minstrel blackface, but it's as you're insulting that behavior and not the black people. Then there's dressing up as a black person, painting yourself because you admire the black person. That's where I think Joy Bear was. I think she wanted to dress up like a soul singer because she liked soul singers. I don't have a problem with it. But it's not me making the standards. It's people like Joy Bear that are out there being social justice warriors, judging other people. They want to talk about Trump's bad joke. Okay, well, you dressed up black. You painted yourself black. Well, Whoopi said it's okay, and she's black, so that's okay. Well, great, I'm glad to say. So if you're black and you're out there and you're upset about people painting themselves black, just so you know, shut your mouth because Whoopi Goldberg's black, and she says your opinion doesn't matter. She speaks for all black people, just so you know. And Joy Bear doesn't think it was blackface. Now, if you painted yourself like that and you're Republican, then that's blackface. You see how that works? Oh, by the way, when Ted Danson actually wore minstrel blackface, you know what the story was? You know what the background is that? He was doing a roast of Whoopi Goldberg, who I believe he was dating or was at least friends with at the time. And she encouraged Ted Danson to wear that blackface. So when she says, I'm black, I know what blackface is, of course you do. You had your white friend actual minstrel blackface. Great job, Whoopi. But the blackface pales in comparison to your sticking up for a pedophile who anally raped a 13-year-old girl. Well, that's not rape. Are you kidding me? Hundreds of people in Hollywood signed a petition. Darren Aronofsky, I think Meryl Streep was one of them. Feminists, they're feminists. But this guy that anally raped a 13-year-old girl, he should be forgiven. That's not rape. Come on, America, let him back in. See, because when the janitor rapes a child, who cares? He's a janitor, screw him. But if you got talent, if you could direct a movie and you rape a child, no problem. What would Whoopi say for herself when Don Jr. said that? Oh, well, okay, you want to talk about that? Yeah, Whoopi. I wish Don would have went further for it. Sure, Whoopi. Please, everyone be quiet. Whoopi's going to explain it to you. Can you explain to us what rape means and how anally raping a 13-year-old girl isn't rape? Please, go ahead. I'll be quiet. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying about my dad's locker room talk now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he wasn't talking about an actual anal rape of a 13-year-old girl and how we should forgive and not even judge the person who did it. But you're right. You're a good person, and my father's a bad dude. You're right. Please go on. Hey, audience, what do you think? Not rape, right? Let's get a chant going. Not rape. Woo! It's cool to anally rape 13-year-old girls as long as you're a good director. Come on, audience. Let's hear it from the left side. How about from the right? Come on, Whoopi. Woo! Hey, you rest of the people in the view, right? Come on. Let's do it. Let's get Polanski on the show today. Hey, can we get Harvey Weinstein to do a spot while we're at it? Woo! What's Bill Cosby up to today? No problem, right? He's a talented actor, talented comedian. No problem. That's our moral superiors? That's the people casting moral judgment on us? The cackling harpies at The View? Every one of these people. See, someday I'm going to run for Congress again. And if you live in my district in Pennsylvania, you should vote for me. And you should vote for me for two reasons. I think that I'd be really good at it. I think I have good policies, which I talk about a lot. I think that I'd be a great representative. I think that I wouldn't be corrupted because here's a little secret about me. I've kind of spent half my life around kind of people that are financially more well off, more, cosmopolitan, city folk. And then I've spent half my life with people around here in rural Pennsylvania. And I really like the people in rural Pennsylvania. I like a lot of those people I met that were wealthier in the city. But these are my people. I don't want to go to the city. So if I get sent to Washington, I'm not going to be enthralled with limos and skyscrapers. I don't care. I'm going to want to get back to my district. In fact, that's why I'm proposing they should use things like Skype and video recording equipment, live streaming video equipment, so that you don't even have to be in Capitol Hill except for certain votes. You should be allowed to stay with your constituents. Because I think one of the problems we have is people get off to Washington and they forget what the people in their area live like. I'd want to spend as much time here as possible. So that's one reason. But the other reason is this, because I'm going to be damn entertaining. I will go on CNN 24/7, baby. How you doing, Jake Tapper? Good to see you. So, anything to say about Epstein today, or are we still burying that conversation? Oh, okay, cool. Anyways, how's that whole Christopher Steele thing? Remember, hey, check out the Rolling Stone today. Rolling Stone's got a great article by Matt Taibbi where it's talked specifically about how, remember the time when Jake Tapper was very upset with BuzzFeed publishing the dossier? Right? That sounds credible of Jake Tapper, right? A journalist. He thought that it didn't meet the standards to publish it. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's not what he was upset about? He was upset because it hurt the credibility of the narrative against Trump? Yeah, you heard that right. And just in case you think I'm making this up, if you give me one quick second here. I know, don't get upset here. But I'm going to take my face away for a minute. Oh, no. Really? I know. It hurts you for my handsome face to disappear for a moment. Whoop. You see this? Let me check real quick. Let's start right here. If you read this and thought it was silly, you weren't alone. In early 2017, CNN anchor Jake Tapper wrote to BuzzFeed editor Ben Smith in a snip, complaining that Smith had been irresponsible and uncollegial when he published the dossier. Was Tapper upset that Smith had broken the ethical tradition by publishing unverified material, defaming a string of named human beings as traitorous spies without evidence? Nope! Tapper was mad that Smith had defamed the story by showing where it came from. Quote from Tapper, "I think your move makes the story less serious and credible," he wrote in an email produced as part of a lawsuit against BuzzFeed. "I think you damaged its impact." Tapper apparently liked the Steele tale better when it was coming out in bits through more politically astute sources, like his buddy and future co-worker, the former director of national intelligence James Clapper, one of the four Sneaky Petes who presented Trump with the Steele synopsis. Wouldn't it be nice to get interviewed by Jake Tapper? But no one has the nerve. None of these Republicans have the nerve to actually go on there and tell it like it is. I'm just so sick and tired of it. You know? I'm trying. I am. And I think I did a better job this week of putting more videos out. But it's tough. I am working huge hours. It becomes difficult, though. It gets frustrating. You know, I'll reach 10 to, you know, if I have a good video, it'll reach 40 people. I try to work with my local Republicans. They're basically just like, you know? What are they doing? The Republicans are constantly on the defense. They're constantly accepting that the mainstream media is, they control the narrative. They're legitimate. We have to appease them. That's garbage. They're garbage people. Call them out. Start every interview with one of their embarrassments. Hey, how you doing, Brian Stoddard? Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. By the way, please don't smear my children like the Covington kids, right? I don't want them getting death threats. Yeah, okay. Moving on. Oh, you were saying something about the whistleblower? Like when your network outed the whistleblower who made a meme about CNN? Remember that? That young kid? Whew, that was funny. Then he got death threats? Oh, man, that was great. But you were saying, Mr. Stoddard? Yeah, go on. Why isn't it done? George! Hello, Mr. Stephanopoulos. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Oh, yeah, you're right. The financing for the wall, it's going to be very problematic. Did you discuss financing the wall when you were sitting down at dinner with Jeffrey Epstein after he pled guilty to having sex with an underager? Was that something you all discussed? Oh, I'm sorry. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I disagree. I think that people should know your quality of character as someone who hobnobs with pedophiles. Why isn't every single time? Or if you don't want to get that personal, why aren't you just carrying around that letter from the 3 Democratic senators that demanded Ukraine change their policy and keep giving evidence of Trump's crimes to Mueller? Why aren't you carrying that around and be like, here's the CNN, here, Jake Tapper, here's CNN reporting on this letter. So your network knew it existed. Now here's your defense of the letter. Let's read your defense of the letter. No whistleblowers. Weird. That's where we're at. Yeah, well, Jake Tapper won't interview Don Jr. And he'll filibuster. That's what he does. That's what he did to Jim Jordan. I mean, it's unbelievable. On this, just to wrap up this story about The View, kudos to Don Jr. That's the best that literally is the best I've seen someone do what I'm suggesting doing. That's the best that I've seen in recent memory that I can think of. It wasn't perfect. He could have did better. But hey, you're on the spot. By the way, did you see the crowd? Some of them were cheering. The crowd on The View, some of them were cheering for Don Jr. This isn't a MAGA rally, said Joy Bear. You're right. It's your crowd cheering for Don Jr. You're pathetic. Just to go back to the first story, just because I still have a little energy left, about the coup story again. Here's something that I've heard repeatedly. Like, you hear all these defenses for why it was okay, why it's a bad idea to investigate Joe Biden. This might be my favorite comment, and I've heard this several people, several times from each individual that have said it. You'll talk about how, remember, where's this starting from? Trump tried to look at evidence of possible corruption of Joe Biden. The Democrats said that was illegal, and he needs to be impeached because of it. That's the background of why we're discussing this. So, one of the things I'm doing is showing, look, there is evidence to investigate about Biden, right? When I say that, this is the response that I'm talking about that I get. That might be the funniest response I've heard in a long time. Well, if Biden's guilty, lock the effer up. Let's see the evidence. Dude, your side is saying it is illegal to look at the evidence. So on one hand, you can't look for evidence of Biden's crimes. And if you do, you should be impeached. It's illegal. It's unethical. You're a conspiracy theorist. On the other hand, hey man, if Biden did something illegal, show me the evidence. Imagine if Trump did this. Trump was just like, hey man, I'm just going to lock up anyone who investigates me. All right? Anyone who investigates me, I'm just going to lock up. It's a crime to investigate me. So that's the new standard. And then he comes out the next day and people say, Mr. Trump, what do you say about people that say, you violated some law? He goes, oh yeah, where's the evidence? Mr. Trump, you locked everyone up that was trying to get evidence. Oh, so there is no evidence? Great. That's how stupid these people are. And they don't even, like, I don't know if they're trolls. I think they believe their own garbage. I think that there are people writing that are like, well, I haven't seen any evidence. Show me the evidence of Biden's crime. Now let me go over to this next page. Oh, yes, it's absolutely impeachable for Trump to look for evidence of Biden's crimes. It's unbelievable. Here's another defense. I would love to I offer these people all the time, please come on my show, debate me, please. Or I'll go on your show. Or we could do it not even live. It doesn't even have to be a video. Call me up on the phone. Let's talk about it. Here's some other defenses I hear. Well, what allegedly was the crime that Hunter Biden committed? What's the alleged crime that he committed that his dad was trying to bury? Well, there could be several. According to Joe Biden and Barack Obama, Hunter Biden's boss was involved in obtaining money in all sorts of shady, illegal ways. He could have been funneling illegal monies through Hunter Biden. Right? Hunter Biden could be promising political favors to that corrupt person to get this money. That's also a crime. Now, it's entirely possible Hunter Biden didn't commit a crime. It is not a crime to get hired by a company because of your dad's name, even if they're a politician. That's not a crime. That's not Hunter doing something unethical. That's Joe doing something unethical. Joe should have had to recuse himself. You can't be involved in ousting corruption when you say the very corrupt guy you're going after is employing your son. That's a conflict of interest. So it wasn't that in that world, it's not a crime by Hunter Biden. But the Obama administration should have said, Hunter, you can't have this position or we can't go after. It's a conflict of interest for us then to have policy to go after your employer. That's on the Obama administration and Biden, not on Hunter. And lastly, a crime by Hunter isn't necessary anyways. Well, how could that be? Why would Joe Biden want a case buried into his son if there was no crime? Was Hunter Biden getting paid over $80,000 a month? Yep. If Zlochevsky and Burisma had been found guilty of something and forced to close shop, would Hunter Biden stood to have lost $80,000 a month? Yep. Could that be a good reason to not want the company shut down so your son isn't making $80,000 a month? Yep. It's not a crime for Hunter to make that money. But it could be a crime to stop down an investigation into your employer. Like, let me make that simpler just in case you don't know. Let's say I work for a pizzeria in town. I don't make pizzas. I have no experience with pizzas, right? But that pizzeria is going to pay me $10,000 a week. Okay? Just sit there and hang out. Cool. All right? Get $10,000 a week just to hang out at this pizzeria. Sounds great. Now I find out that the pizzeria guy is under investigation by the FBI or by some, the local police, whatever. And if he gets arrested, I ain't going to make that $10,000 a week anymore, am I? So I might have an incentive, if I had the ability to do anything about it, to keep him out of jail. So if my dad was then the mayor, and he could help shut down that investigation, I ain't committing no crime by making $10,000 a week, but I still don't want my employer fired. Now, is that proof that's what Joe Biden did or Hunter Biden? No. But I don't have to prove they're guilty. In fact, I can't prove they're guilty. And do you want to know why I can't? Because there hasn't been an investigation. I'm not like the left. I don't just declare people guilty. Well, most of the time. Everyone, even the ones I've complained about this whole video, deserve a fair trial. Right, John, and everybody knows that's what it was about. Hunter Biden was hired because his name was Biden. The corrupt oligarch Zlochevsky took a gamble. He said, it's worth paying this kid Hunter this much money who's going to do crap for my company, because the mere fact that he'll be on the board of directors for my company and getting paid so much means that his dad and their administration's not going to throw the hammer at me. And guess what? It worked! Zlochevsky walked away with a slap on the wrist. Good investment in Zlochevsky's part. All we have to do is prove there's reason for an investigation. But Shokin wasn't investigating. Everybody says it. Well, Shokin testified that he was investigating. No, we can't listen to Shokin. He's corrupt. Everybody says it. Everybody says he buried the investigation. Everybody. How would Biden know that? Was Biden talking to Shokin? Was Biden talking to people in Shokin's office? Do you understand the stupidity of what they're suggesting? So Shokin, right, let's say you got Shokin, and he's like, okay, I'm supposed to investigate Zlochevsky and this company Burisma, right? But I'm not going to investigate them. Ha ha ha, I'm corrupt, I'm not investigating. And so then there's someone in Shokin's office, like a deputy, it's like, well, this sucks. Shokin needs to be investigating this corrupt Zlochevsky. I know what I'll do. I'll talk to Joe Biden. Hey, Joe, you know that company your son works for? Yeah. My son Hunter, he works for that company, Burisma. That corrupt oligarch, Zlochevsky, owns it. Yeah. Well, I'm the deputy prosecutor. I work in the prosecutor's office. And it turns out the head prosecutor, Shokin, he's not doing a good enough job investigating your son or investigating Zlochevsky. Are you shitting me? Says Joe Biden. My God, here's what we'll do. We'll withhold $1 billion to make sure that guy gets fired. Zlochevsky must be brought to justice. Thank you, Mr. Biden. That's what they think happened? Joe Biden or Barack Obama being involved with the prosecutors looking into Biden's son's company is itself unethical and reason for an investigation. So if your defense is, well, Biden and Obama knew that Shokin wasn't looking into Zlochevsky, how did they know? They should have been totally unaware of what was actually going on in the prosecutor's office. All they knew was there's an investigation. This is the guy's name that's leading it. Now, even if Shokin, maybe he was corrupt. Maybe he wasn't looking into Hunter Biden. Did you ever watch, like, Goodfellas? I think it's Goodfellas. I always get Goodfellas and Casino mixed up because they're both Scorsese movies. It's Casino I'm thinking of, okay? So the movie Casino, for those of you who haven't seen it, Robert De Niro plays this guy. He runs this casino for the mob. And at the end of the movie, it's based on a true story, but at the end of the movie, the police start to kind of crack this, and they're starting to arrest a bunch of these mobsters. And it shows the head mobsters, and they're all sitting, like, in a room, and they're like, well, what do you think about, Sam or whatever, And, at one point they're like, Sam's a good guy. Stand up. He won't rat us out. But, and the next guy's like, yeah, I get you. And then it gets to the last mobster. He's like, I agree, but, why take a chance? And so they kill Sam. They kill all the people that, even if they think there's no way they'd ever sell him out, they kill him because it's like, why take a chance? Right? That's what they say. Now, I'm not saying people were being killed by the Obama administration. That's all I'm saying. But if you don't know crap about Shokin, he's a wild card. Maybe he'll never do anything to Hunter. Maybe he's corrupt and he'll leave Zlochevsky off the hook. Maybe he'll go after Zlochevsky and Hunter. We don't know. The Obama administration doesn't know. Would you rather that person that you have no idea what they'll do, even if you're hearing they're corrupt and aren't going to go after Zlochevsky, would you rather have them lead the investigation, or would you rather have it be in the hands of the agency that's buried investigations for you in the past? The NABU. Of course you'd rather the people you have a working relationship be in charge of the investigation. Of course. argument, well, Shokin wasn't doing anything, that doesn't mean there couldn't have been an incentive for Obama's administration and Joe Biden in particular to want him to lose the investigation. They wanted it to be in the hands of people they could trust that had buried cases for them before. Now, do I have proof of that? No. But there's reason to investigate. I don't know how to make it more simple than just, you have a vice president named John Smith, and John Smith uses $1 million tax dollars and threatens another country they won't get that aid, that $1 million, unless they fire a prosecutor, because that prosecutor's looking into his son Bob Smith, a company that he's on the board of directors for. Investigation, period. No other fact matters. But wait, Rob. Every leader, every member of parliament in the EU says that John Smith was right to want that prosecutor fired. I don't care. But wait, Rob. Every media member said that John Smith was right to want that prosecutor fired. I don't care. But wait, Rob. It turns out that prosecutor was a scumbag and he probably wasn't going to do a good job into the investigation of Bob Smith anyways. I don't care. Our government system isn't based on, well, the opinions of a bunch of people in Europe. That's not how it works. I get it. I get people would be confused. Because if you're a deep state loving globalist, you don't think elections matter. Like Brexit. Voted for Brexit. We don't care. We're not going to implement it. Let's just have another vote. That's it. So when you think that way, of course you don't see a problem with this. Hey, the globalists in the EU said get rid of the guy, so who cares? Right? Doesn't care that our tax money was used. Doesn't matter that that guy was, on paper at least, tasked with investigating the company that Joe Biden's son was on the board of. Doesn't matter. Well, that's not how it works in this country. It's not a popularity contest of what the rest of the world thinks. Yes, I understand the open borders crowd thinks that. I definitely do. They hate America. They don't like flyover country. They don't like the average American like me or you. They hate us. Of course, they don't want our voice to matter. They want the elite's voice in Europe to matter. I get that. I get that's what they think. But that's not the way our system works. I don't care what the Queen said, or what Merkel said, or what Christine Lagarde at the IMF said. I don't care. I don't even care if they're all right and Shokin was corrupt. That doesn't mean that Joe Biden didn't have a personal reason for wanting him gone. And you can tell they're full of it, the people that are making this argument, right? Because the argument again is, well, you can't give this $1 billion to a corrupt country that their prosecutor's corrupt. So they only had one corrupt prosecutor. That's what we're led to believe. The aid wasn't conditioned on, you need to get rid of this group of people. Here is an entire agency that's corrupt. Here's, right, there's so much corrupt. That's what everyone says. Oh, you have to understand, corruption's running rampant. It's rampant. The corruption's rampant, right? Corruption's rampant in Ukraine. It was everywhere. You have to understand that. I'll bring something up and show you my latest video. That's what they were told. Corruption's rampant. But for some reason, they're only concerned about this one guy. As if, well, if we get rid of Shokin, that's it. All the corruption's gone. Are you kidding me? Does anyone really believe that? I mean, it's nonsense. And then the proof's in the pudding. You can say everything they want. I can't believe, I listen to these people over the show. Well, you know, the prosecutor wasn't doing anything. Everybody knew Zlochevsky was corrupt. And everybody knew Shokin was corrupt because he was letting Zlochevsky off the hook. So they had to get rid of him. Okay, so they got rid of him. And finally, the prosecutors that came in after actually got Zlochevsky. Well, no. Oh, okay, so then it's still corrupt. And Trump shouldn't be giving them money. Well, no, he has to give them the money. Okay, but at least Obama and Biden have spoken out publicly and Christine Lagarde at the IMF and all these EU people that were furious that Zlochevsky was walking free because of Shokin, they've all spoken up, right? About how they're upset that the NABU left him off the hook. Well, no. They haven't said anything. But they're still doing business with Ukraine. So they literally want us to believe the entire... On one hand, Ukraine was such a corrupt place that the United States and the IMF and the EU, they had to be given all this money and they had to do all this work with Ukraine and they had to demand quid pro quos and everything because it's so corrupt. The place, you have to understand, it's so corrupt. And I'll show you a little more of this in a minute, right? That's what they want us to believe on one hand. But on the other hand, the corruption was just one guy, Shokin. We got rid of him. That's it. Okay. Case closed. Shokin's out. No more corruption. But wait a minute. I thought you guys said Zlochevsky was corrupt. Oh, well. Shokin was the real problem. The problem wasn't the corrupt oligarch that we wanted out. The problem was the guy that was letting him off the hook. Okay, but the next guy's left him off the hook. We got rid of Shokin. Good enough. That's what they want you to believe? That'd be like this. That'd be like saying, and this is something that could actually happen. You'd say, we're going to condition our foreign aid on you dismantling your nuclear weapon program, right? Like, let's say Congress would vote and say, we'll give North Korea $500 million to help with, the starvation and the illness in their country if they dismantle their nuclear weapon program. That's something that could happen. That's the type of quid pro quos that happen. Okay. But then in reality, they say, well, actually, we just want you to fire this one scientist. You can leave the other scientist. You let him there. They can keep working on the nuclear weapons program. But we want you to get rid of this one scientist. Do you think that would ever happen? But we think your entire investigative agencies are corrupt. The legal system in your country is so corrupt, we can't give you this $1 billion. So just fire this one guy and then we'll say it's cool. Oh, that guy happens to be the one that's looking into my son. Are you kidding me? This was my latest video. I did it minutes before I came on here live. So Fiona Hill is someone who testified in the impeachment hearing. She was like John Bolton's second in command. And she was, let me see here. Just give me a second. She was Bolton's second in command and at the NSC, and supposedly she's an expert on Soviet bloc corruption and blah, 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 blah. So she testified, and the Democrats were more than happy to release her transcript because she had a problem with Trump looking into accusations of election interference with Ukraine, particularly bringing up Joe Biden's name. That's the big takeaway from her testimony. So I want to read something to you. Here's the problem, right? And I wish I had more time. Here's where I'll do a little spiel like, hey, support me. If I got more viewers and stuff, I could actually do this full time and go through this stuff full time. Because who's really going through the actual testimony? Not many people. But I did have a little time today to go through this. And here's, to my surprise, yeah, right, what I found on page 171. So let me scroll up so you can see where I'm at. This is, sorry. As you can see, page 170. I will link here so you can read yourself, if you like. No, she's not related to Kate Hill, funnily enough. But you can see it's on page 170. Now, bear with me for a minute. So let me set this up a little and tell you exactly what's going on. Representative Zeldin's asking her about election interference from the Ukraine. Now, for those of you that don't know, and I've showed you this before, for some reason it's behind a paywall now, but there's a Financial Times article in August of 2016 where a Ukrainian politician by the name of Lyshenko admits to working with an agency that we would find out was the NABU in releasing the black ledger about Paul Manafort to interfere in the 2016 election. He actually uses those words, interfering in the 2016 election. He worked with a DNC operative named Alexandra Chalupa to do that. So here we have an admission in our mainstream media before the election that Ukrainian officials, along with the Ukrainian investigative agency, were actively interfering in the 2016 election to help Hillary Clinton because they did not like the policies of Donald Trump. Admit it. That's admitted. So when Fiona Apple, the reason this is important to ask someone like Ms. Apple is she's upset or I'm sorry, Fiona Apple. Ha! Fiona Hill, I mean. That's great. The reason it's important to ask her is she says she had a problem with Trump, particularly bringing up Biden, but the idea of him investigating corruption in the Ukraine. And so Zeldin's like, but wait a minute, wasn't there election interference? That's why it's important for Zeldin to be asking this, right? So I'm going to go down here. We're on page 170. That's the context for what he's going to start asking. Now, I posted the link. In case you think I'm misrepresenting this, feel free to read the whole thing. You should anyways, if you have free time. But here we go. So starting line 13 here. Questions Lee Zeldin, asking the questions. Who's a Republican? He says, are you familiar with, the allegation about Sergei Lyshenko? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that. She says, Lyshenko, yes. He responds, relating to publicizing Manafort's role in the Ukraine. She responds, you've also got to remember that Ukraine is going through a massive period of upheaval itself in this period. I mean, this is the period where Yovanovitch, by the way, Yovanovitch was the ousted pro-Putin president. Yovanovitch, the previous Ukrainian president, basically flees the country, leaves all kinds of documents and things behind, and the Ukrainian investigative reporters and everybody pouring all over this. You can go back and look on YouTube at some of the rather strange things that Yovanovitch left behind him. He tried to flush half the documents down the toilet. He threw some of those in the lake. There was all kinds of material that were out there for people to pick over and to look at. And I think Mr. Mueller and his team have well documented a lot of this information. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't talk at all about Ukrainian election interference. So that's not responsive to what he's saying. So Zeldin asks you again. But to the extent the Ukrainians were involved in pushing out the information on Paul Manafort, don't you think that could have had an impact on the election? Now I want you to read real close what she's going to say here coming up, okay? She responds, there are all kinds of things that have had an impact on the election. Zeldin responds, do you think it's fair that people are aware of that reporting? And this is her statement. She says, I don't know how much the average American voter is aware of that reporting. My family is redacted. My in-laws, that was not the reason they voted in the election, for example. I have a huge American family, and none of them have ever referenced anything like that to me at all. They care about things the average American cares about. Health, education, and jobs. Now, do you hear what she's saying here? She's basically saying, who cares about election interference? The real thing Americans care about are health, education, jobs. In other words, she don't care a lick that Ukraine interfered in the election. It didn't have any influence on people. All they care about is election and jobs. Okay, well then I guess she probably feels the same way about Russia interference, right? Let's go down a little further. Let's see what it says. Zeldin says, but if there are Ukrainians trying to push the information out about Manafort, isn't that an effort to influence the outcome of the election? Her lawyer, Mr. Polanski, says, I think she answered several times. Hill says, there are Ukrainians pushing. Castor says, it's a pretty harmless question. Her lawyer says, you've asked it 3 or 4 times. Then she responds, this is Dr. Hill again. Yes. Yes, what? Yes, it would be Ukrainians trying to affect the election. She says, yes. But there are Ukrainians pushing out information about Masha Yovanovitch, which is untrue. Why don't you ask about that as well? Is Masha Yovanovitch any less of an American than Mr. Manafort? She's not been accused of corruption. Zeldin's like, wait, Dr. Hill. She says, I'm sorry. I'm just getting annoyed about this. Because the point is that, Mr. Manafort's also been subject. I don't know him either. But there's been a trial in which he was convicted of certain activity. And I'd like to believe that law-abiding in pursuing that, what he did. And again, as I've said, corruption is our Achilles heel here in the United States. And I'm shocked again that we've had the failure of imagination to realize the Russians could target us in the same way that they used the corruption in Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, Armenia, Georgia. We, unfortunately, by not cleaning up our own act, have given them the doors which they could walk through and mess around in our system. And if Mr. Manafort did half the things that he was said to do, shame on him, okay? And I don't know him. And again, this isn't a partisan discussion. And frankly, what he should not be subject to, is this kind of back and forth either. Did you get that? Did you get what she just said? She went from, who cares about Ukrainian election interference? All we care about is jobs and healthcare, right? That was the first thing she said. And then the very next statement she goes down to, My God, our Achilles heel is foreign election interference. Russians! The Russians! So wait, people, all of a sudden they stopped caring about healthcare and jobs and education? And they cared about the Russians? I thought all they cared about was healthcare and education. We don't have to look at Ukrainian election interference because that didn't swing any votes. All those people care about is election or education and healthcare. 30 seconds later, our Achilles heel is Russia. Oh my goodness. Can you believe this? This is one of the star witnesses to the impeachment of Trump? Oh, yeah, I don't have my light on. Well, I was using a natural light source. Give me a second. I'll be done here anyways in 15 minutes. Do you see their double standard? This is the establishment feeling on the Ukrainian election. Remember, we were told over and over again, election interference, it's an act of war. Leave no stone unturned. We have to raid Trump's lawyers in the middle of the night with guns. We have to look at crimes that occurred decades ago. Right? Wasn't that what we were told? Then as soon as we say, okay, well, here's admitted foreign election interference to help Hillary. It's not a big deal. The only thing that mattered was jobs and healthcare and education. Over and over, this is the type of crap they do. Quid pro quo. Oh my God, a quid pro quo. I shouldn't do this, but wait. Give me a second. I might out someone. Boop, boop, boop. One second, I know this is boring. I'm trying to find something. But do you see this ridiculous nature of what's going on? And she goes on. I'm not going to bring the screen back up, but you trust me. Zeldin's like, so wait a minute. They did interfere? She says the Ukrainian government did not interfere in the U.S. election. The Ukrainian government did not do that. The special services did not do that. Zeldin says, okay, follow-up questions. Wait. If it wasn't the Ukrainian government, Zeldin said, did Ukrainians interfere with the U.S. election? Hill says, I mean, look, this is any foreign individual, the way that you're going with this question, any foreign individual who evidenced any kind of interest in the campaigns or tried to meet with anyone in any campaign, and I just said to you before, I could come up with on my own accounting a whole range of people who are foreign individuals who wanted to meet with various campaigns that then would count as interference. Anybody wanting to meet with anyone in a campaign or talk to anybody. Exactly! That's what I said in the first place! That's exactly what I said. I said, I didn't think it was illegal for Don Jr. to try to get dirt on Trump or on Hillary from Russians. I didn't think it was illegal for Hillary to try to get dirt on Trump from a foreign British spy or from Russians. I didn't care. I didn't think either was illegal. Remember when 12 trolls were charged by Mueller for Facebook memes and Twitter memes? Remember that? And he said these were Russians attacking our election. Mueller said in his report there were 2 instances of Russia interfering in our election. The first was the supposed hacking of the DNC. Remember, they weren't allowed to actually look at the server, though, but I won't go on with that. As far as I'm concerned, there's still no proof of that. But that was one. The second was 50% of the Russian interference was these Russian trolls that put Facebook memes, which on its face is hilarious. But whatever, that's what they claim. Then remember when a judge excoriated Mueller and said, you can't keep saying these people were connected to Putin because there's no evidence. They just happen to be Russians who put memes up. And Mueller and the entire Democrat establishment was just like, oh, that proves Putin was interfering in our election. That's Putin interfering. And I said, what the hell's your proof? Because they happen to be Russians, they must be Putin people. What's this woman saying? Exactly that. I mean, the way you're looking at it is any foreign individual evidence any kind of interest in the campaigns, that would be election interference. So did some Ukrainians want to talk? Yeah, but so did some Chinese. A lot of Russians. And there were a lot more Russians who were trying to get involved. Do you see? Do you see what's going on here? I want to read you something. This is what someone... I'm not going to show it to you because I don't want to out their screen name, even though it's just an online screen name. This is from a message board I was on, talking about this. Quote, and the context of this is why this person believes Trump's guilty and needs to be impeached. Quote, what people are saying is that the president can't withhold funds approved by Congress as aid to an ally in exchange for a favor. Period. That's called extortion. It matters not what Trump's intentions were, even if he was on a mission from God. Okay? I respond. Biden admitted he withheld $1 billion until the Ukraine fired a prosecutor who happened to be looking at his son's company. The response I get is, quote, he was vice president, and that was his job. Actual crimes had been committed, and remember, we were trying to help Ukraine, not Russia. He didn't admit to extorting anyone because this wasn't extortion. It was pressure, and it was definitely a legitimate threat. Let me read his two comments again. Comment number 1, this is why Trump needs to be impeached. What people are saying is the president can't withhold funds approved by Congress as aid to any ally in exchange for a favor, period. That's called extortion. It matters not what Trump's intentions were, even if he was on a mission from God. Okay, well, that's what Biden did. Response. He was vice president, and it was his job. Actual crimes have been committed. And remember, we're trying to help the Ukraine. He didn't admit to extorting anyone because this wasn't extortion. It was pressure, and it was definitely a legitimate threat. Now, am I picking on just this one person? No. That's the mentality of these people. That's why you ask them, dude, stop telling me this, what Trump did was illegal. You tell me specifically what was illegal. You tell me what was impeachable. To this user's credit, they do. They say, you could never withhold congressional approved funds for a favor, period. End of story. Doesn't matter what your intentions are. Doesn't matter if you're on a mission from God. If you're withholding, if you're using a quid pro quo, it is extortion. It is illegal. Period. Thank you. That's what I want to hear. People say that. I say, well, what about when Biden did it? Oh, it was cool when Biden did it. That's not extortion. Now, that's someone who is convinced. That's someone, by the way, who says, I'm stupid. I'm just lying. They're so much smarter than me. That person and the people, there's tons of people, agreeing with that person. They don't see the contradiction there. Literally, they're like, I could see into Biden's heart and I could see into Trump's heart. And I know that Trump's evil and therefore when he does something, it's clearly evil. And I know that Biden's a good guy. And so when Biden does something, it's clearly good. It's that simple. So it's okay. Quid pro quos and asking for personal favors is totally fine. As long as my guy does it. If your guy does it, then it's a crime and they need to be impeached. They are more than comfortable to have that. More than comfortable. This is what the social justice left. These are the people that they've put out. They're brainwashed. Again, I don't mind a disagreement. If that person would have said, yes, any quid pro quo is illegal, period. And I said, what about Biden's? And they said, yes, it was illegal. Both Trump and Biden's quid pro quo is illegal. I'd say, okay, I disagree, but fair enough. Quid pro quo, and here's another defense I heard, right? How could you say that Trump's quid pro quo is not illegal, but Biden's is? Either quid pro quos are illegal or they're not. I'm not saying that the illegality is the quid pro quo. I've admitted over and over, quid pro quos are done all the time. A quid pro quo is not illegal. Okay, well then if it's not illegal, then you could use them and that's it. No! And this is the best analogy I could come up with. Is it legal for you to hire a contractor? Yes, you could hire a contractor. Perhaps you need a contractor to paint your home or to mow your grass. That's perfectly legal. So then let's say I hire a contractor to murder someone. Is that legal? No. And the person will respond to me, wait a minute, you said hiring contractors was legal. You said it was okay. So clearly hiring a contractor to kill someone's not illegal. It's not the act of hiring the contractor that it's illegal. It's the reason for it. Quid pro quos are not illegal. If you use one for illegitimate reasons, it could be illegal. You could say this about all sorts of things. The act itself is not illegal. It's why you're doing it. Climbing through a window isn't illegal. If I'm climbing through a window to break into a store, that's illegal. You don't just say either going through a window is always legal or going through a window is always illegal. That's so stupid. But if you're like this person and you say any quid pro quo is always extortion and illegal, okay, then they're all illegal. You don't then get to say, well, wait, no, sometimes it's okay. That's not how it works. You specifically said, he specifically says, it matters not what Trump's intentions were. So the motivation doesn't matter. Just period. The quid pro quo. That's all that matters. You did one. It doesn't matter if your intentions were a mission from God. That's what they said. Mission from God doesn't matter. Quid pro quo, illegal. Period. Okay, Trump did it, or Biden did a quid pro quo. Ah, that was legal. He had good intentions. So now all of a sudden, we're looking at intentions. With Trump, it wasn't looking at intentions. Now it's looking at intentions. What Biden did with the quid pro quo was not illegal. By the way, Pelosi and Schiff, that both said a quid pro quo wasn't necessary for there to be a crime here. They both said that, right? So what they're saying is, trying to get evidence of crimes about people that are your political opponent from a foreign country is illegal. I said, okay, right out of the gate, that's what Obama did, right? That's what his administration, the FBI investigation into Trump, started, according to them, with Alexander Downer and people like, we were working with the Five Eyes groups, with the UK groups. The FBI was contacting UK officials and former UK spies and, using Kremlin agents as sources. That would be illegal. Now, I don't think it was illegal for Obama to do that. I do not think it was illegal for Obama or for his FBI to say, we think there was a crime. We're going to ask foreign governments that we think might have relevant information if they have evidence pertaining to this. What is illegal is then not verifying that information and using it to spy on your opponent. Or setting up a honeypot scheme. Sending up someone like Joseph Mifsud, who is a Western intelligence asset we're going to find out, to set it up from the get-go. That's illegal, but just investigating is not illegal. Trump did nothing wrong trying to see if his predecessors committed crimes. He did nothing wrong attempting to investigate 2016 election interference from the Ukrainians. And I'll say it for the millionth time. That's exactly what Biden, if he tried to cover up crimes of his son, that still qualifies as election interference. You could try to have foreign election interference by having a foreign agent dig up dirt in your opponent. You could try to have election interference by having a foreign agent bury dirt that would harm you and your side. Both of that's reasons to harm an election. And I can prove that the Democrats feel that way. You know how I can prove that? Remember the whole Stormy Daniels garbage? What did they say? Oh, Trump paid her with campaign funds. That was for the election. That was to bury the story to help his election. Okay. So then why wasn't Biden trying to bury a story about his son receiving money from someone that Biden and his father were calling corrupt? Why wouldn't that be burying our election interference? That's that simple. One, it doesn't matter. He has the right to investigate any crime, not just election interference. And as far as I'm concerned, the misuse or the gambling or the extortion of someone with $1 billion of our tax dollars is worth investigating. But even still, it's election interference. That's what it is. Now we see from establishment deep state people like Fiona Hill. Well, what about the election interference? Well, okay, there were Ukrainians. Here's how she makes it sound. She says, sure, someone in the Ukraine happened to want to have a meeting with someone in the U.S. I guess we could say that's interference, but it wasn't the Ukrainian government. No, it was a politician in the Ukraine who has publicly admitted in our mainstream media that other politicians in the Ukraine and agencies, including the NABU, were releasing classified information to DNC operatives to interfere in the election. That's not Joe Schmo. That's not some Ukrainian on the couch eating cheese curls that picked up the phone and said, I'd like to talk to Trump. I'd like to talk to Joe Biden. That's not what it was. So to them, their standard is any Russian, no matter what, if they said anything negative about Hillary, that was the Russian government interfering. But the actual FBI, the equivalent of the FBI in the Ukraine, and Ukrainian politicians actually publicly admitting to interfering in the election because they didn't like Trump's policies, well, that's not the government of the Ukraine. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Well, that interference didn't matter anyways because, Russia and, all we really cared about was education and healthcare. So, And by the way, Paul Manafort was a bad dude. Don't you love that excuse? You see what she's doing? So she's given several excuses. Look, one, it wasn't officially the Ukrainian government. Garbage, as I've already proven. Second, okay, what Russia did was way worse. Even if that's true, it's irrelevant. So what, it's okay to sell crack as long as the guy next door is selling more crack than you? Either election interference is an act of war, our Achilles heel, a huge problem, or it isn't. What are we looking at here? Do you see how stupid this is? Now, the next thing she says. Well, it wasn't important anyways. No one's really concerned about election interference. They're concerned about the education and healthcare. Okay, then why did we just have a 3-year investigation into Russian interference? Do you mean to tell me your this is the criteria? When she's like, my family wasn't concerned about election interference. They're concerned about education and healthcare. Do you mean to say then the next statement is, oh, actually, they were concerned about Russian interference. They were concerned about it. So the order goes, Russian interference, education, healthcare, and then not concerned about Ukrainian interference. Huh? Yeah? Ridiculous. We had to spend 3 years looking at interference that supposedly benefited Hillary. Benefited Trump and harmed Hillary. But as soon as the worm turns and it's like, okay, here's admitted interference that benefited Hillary. Oh, no. That investigating election interference isn't important. In fact, I was very troubled that Trump was trying to investigate election interference. I was very troubled. Yeah, I just want to testify. You should probably be impeached. Everyone get that? It's troubling. I mean, what kind of person would want to have an investigation into their opponent for foreign election interference? You know. Oh, no, that was cool when Obama and Hillary and all the Democrats and Schiff and Pelosi and Schiff. That was cool. It was cool when they were investigating Trump for foreign election interference. That was totally legit. But, I mean, it would be a crime for Trump to want to investigate foreign election interference that helped the Democrats. So I was troubled. That he wanted to do literally the exact same thing we did to him for 3 years. That troubled me, personally. So we should probably impeach, Trump's affecting our foreign policy. As an unelected official, my foreign policy is what's important here. And then the last thing she says is, well, Manafort's bad anyways. He's guilty anyways. Oh! Okay. So in other words, it's okay for the Ukrainians to illegally interfere with the DNC. It was okay for the DNC to solicit foreign help. It was okay for the Ukrainians to break their own laws and release classified evidence about Paul Manafort to the DNC. It was okay for the DNC to then leak that to the media and use it. That foreign election interference is all okay, so long as it's really true that Manafort's a bad dude. So what they were interfering about was a true thing, so... Well, that's funny. Because as far as I know, all the WikiLeaks that we're saying that was Russia hacking, that was Russia, weren't all those emails true? They're all accurate, right? None of them were fabricated. It was all true. So, by her definition, well, if Manafort was a bad guy, it was okay to interfere in the election by proving that Manafort was a bad guy. Okay, well, if Hillary was screwing Bernie out of the election and was getting questions to the debates from DNC operatives that worked at different networks, then it was okay for Russia to out that, right? No, that wasn't okay. Manafort worked with the Podesta group. I don't think he officially worked under them, but they worked in collaboration. If you read the Mueller indictment of Manafort, it says that he worked with Group A and Group B in lobbying for the pro-Putin president of the Ukraine, Yovanovitch. And the reason that's a crime is he didn't register as a foreign lobbyist. So it says he worked with Group A and Group A. Group A was called Mercury LLC. Mercury LLC is basically a lobbyist firm that basically works with establishment Republicans. Group B was the Podesta group. John Podesta, who was a founding member of that group, and his brother Tony Podesta was running it. John Podesta is the chief of staff for Hillary Clinton. So you had the chief of staff for Trump working with the chief of staff from Hillary's company. Both of them working with the exact same people at the exact same time. Both failed to register as foreign lobbyists. Manafort went to prison and sitting in solitary confinement. The Podesta group was allowed to retroactively file paperwork and no criminal charges were ever filed for literally committing the exact same crime with the exact same people. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what you see. The reason this testimony from Hill, the reason it's important, one, to point this out is to show all these super credible witnesses, all garbage, right? You had Sondland. Oh, Sondland, he was a Trump supporter, and he said that there was a quid pro quo. No, he testified that he felt there was one, but when he talked to Trump, Trump specifically said, there is no quid pro quo. Specifically said that. Then you had Morrissey. Morrissey testified that actually he didn't even hear the phone call. He read in the New York Times that it was a quid pro quo. Then you have Vindman. Vindman was upset that Trump was upsetting the United States foreign policy. Only problem is, Vindman doesn't set United States foreign policy, Trump does. Vindman also didn't hear any direct claim. He just felt it was a quid pro quo. Then other people like Volker have testified there was no quid pro quo. Morrison, I believe. I might got that name Morrissey mixed up. But Morrison, I think, was the name of the guy. He testified. The media was going on, oh, Morrison's going to confirm. He's going to confirm the quid pro quo. Said the exact opposite. I didn't hear anything illegal. I didn't hear any evidence of the quid pro quo. And by the way, the transcript's accurate. But they leave off all those witnesses. They say, nope, just these one or two witnesses. But that's why the Hill testimony is important to show. This is what these establishment people think like. You could watch them from one sentence to the next. Well, actually, foreign election interference, does anyone even really care about that? All we care about is education and healthcare. But yeah, our Achilles heel is Russia and the election interference they did. It's such a huge deal. It's so sad that we haven't prepared ourselves. Oh, it's devastating. Right. I mean, rational. And this is the last thing I'll say, because I'll end up repeating myself. But every instance of foreign election interference we see that benefited Hillary, there's literally been, the media's not been crying for it to be investigated. Mueller didn't investigate it. There's no investigations in Capitol Hill about it. And when Trump tried to investigate it, they said it was a crime for him to try. Every single time there's an accusation of foreign election interference that harmed Hillary, they say no stone must be left unturned. We need to raid lawyers in the middle of the night. We need to charge them with crimes from 10 years ago. We need to have 3-year investigation. They need to go on and on and on. Every single time. The number one piece of election interference from the Russians. Remember, it wasn't, this is admitted by them, by the establishment. It wasn't just that they wanted Trump to win. What they wanted more was just to interfere with our system and cause distrust of our system. Easily, the number one way they were able to accomplish that is via the Steele dossier. Remember, Christopher Steele's sources for almost all of the horrible crimes that he alleged were 2 Kremlin officials that to this day go unnamed. Now, Mueller looked into the allegations into the Steele dossier and could not verify any of them, even though the Steele dossier was used to spy on Carter Page. Couldn't verify any of this. That means that we have received dirt from Kremlin officials that was unverifiable, that was so effective in interfering in our system, it actually was used by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his administration to spy on the next president who was in the opposite party. It was released to the media, and Trump was called a spy for Russia for 2 years. Some polls show as high as 50% of Democrats still believe Trump is a Putin asset based on the Steele dossier. That's millions of people in this country based on this Kremlin disinformation that believe Trump's a Kremlin stooge. Far and away, the biggest example of the Kremlin interfering into our system. Easily. Way more significant than trolls putting memes on Facebook. Way more. When Mueller was asked, hey, I read your report. Where is anything about the Steele dossier? Where's anything about the Kremlin agents that were the source of that? He said, oh, that's outside of my purview. That was the guy who was tasked with investigating foreign election interference. He did not breathe one word about it. And by the way, Mifsud, the guy you're talking about, right? Because after they figured out that remember, the dossier was the start. The dossier was the start. That's what we were told. Oh, the dossier. Mother Jones, Harry Reid, right? Released a letter before the election. Mother Jones on October 31st, before the 2016 election. They all said, oh, this dossier, oh, it's damning. Oh, it's damning. Once, of course, the Democrats lied about paying for it for a year. Then once it came out, it was paid for by the Democrats, and it came out that none of it was verified. They had to change the story real quick. You mean the Russia investigation started on a document paid for by the Democrats that was never verified? They used Kremlin officials as a source? Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was Papadopoulos. It started because of Papadopoulos. That's the start. It was July 31st, 2016. We started it because George Papadopoulos, a low-level guy that was in Trump's orbit, got drunk and talked to a Clinton supporter, a politician from Australia called Alexander Downer, and he drunkenly said, hey, Alexander, I heard these Russians say that they got some emails about Hillary Clinton. And that was the start of the investigation. Now you might be thinking, are you shitting me? Some drunk, barely on Trump's team said that he heard that some Russians might have some emails, and that was reasons to launch of what would become 3-year investigation that would plague the administration the entire time? Yup, that was their story, but it gets juicier. See, because it all started because some guy, a Maltese professor named Joseph Mifsud, he told Papadopoulos about these Russians. He facilitated it, right? Now, meanwhile, Papadopoulos, we know for a fact, had an FBI spy named Stephen Halper and a woman, what was her code name? I can't remember her code name, but a woman using something Turk, Alexandra Turk or something, woman using a code name. These two spies from the FBI went and talked to him, was like, what's this about Russia? What's this about Russia? What's this about Russia? This guy Mifsud got in contact with Papadopoulos and was like, hey, I want to set you up with these Russians because they got emails that they took from Hillary. Okay. Now, Jim Jordan asked Mueller at the Mueller testimony, at his hearing, right? He said that was the start of it all, right? Yep, this Mifsud character. Okay, so Mifsud is this high-level Russian asset, right? He was the one who had the good. He knew, because he was in contact with Russian spies, he knew that Russia had received these emails on Hillary, right? Yep, that's the story. Okay. Now, the FBI interviewed Mifsud, right? Yep. And the FBI said Mifsud lied 3 times, right? Yep. Why wasn't he arrested? I'm not going to get into that, says Mueller. So in other words, the high-level Russian spy that started it all, right? And then lied to the FBI 3 times. No need to charge him with the crime. But Russian trolls making memes? Oh, yeah. And Jim Jordan, and you're right. Rational, you're right. Jim Jordan calls it out. He goes, could the reason you're not talking about Mifsud be that he's Western intelligence? There's only 2 options. Literally the high-level spy that you have the Mueller version, you have the Democrat version, the establishment version. Their version is Mifsud was this super high-level spy that he started the boat rolling. He's the one who had all the contacts in Russians that they were stealing emails from Hillary. He's the one who fed this information to George Papadopoulos. He started it all. That's their version. He then gets interviewed by the FBI. He lies 3 times, according to their version. And they decide not to charge him. They decide to let him off the hook inexplicably. Meanwhile, they charge trolls for making Facebook posts. That's their version. It makes no sense. Why, if you had a high-level Russian spy, why wouldn't you charge him? Especially when you're charging trolls making memes, why wouldn't you charge this high-level spy? Oh, I'm not going to answer that. And the media's not outraged? I thought they were concerned about Russian interference. That we finally got the high-level guy. He's sitting there being interviewed by the FBI. He lies to them 3 times. They charged other people with lying to the FBI. They got him dead to rights, and they're like, nah, we just don't feel like charging him. That's their version. And no one in the media is outraged. None of the Democrats are outraged. Have you heard anyone clamoring, why isn't Joseph Mifsud in jail? Why aren't we at least filing charges against him? None of them, not one, has even mentioned his name. And so we go to the other possibility, which makes a whole lot of sense, which is Mifsud was actually working for Western intelligence, either with the FBI or CIA directly, or with MI5 or 6 in the UK. Do you understand the implications of that? That means Western intelligence made up a story about Russians hacking emails, told it to George Papadopoulos, and then waited for George Papadopoulos to tell another Western intelligence asset, Alexander Downer, the story he heard from the former Western intelligence asset. And that was the reason given to investigate the Trump campaign. That is the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. Imagine that. Imagine that Trump did that, right? Imagine that Trump had his FBI be like, okay, find a low-level staffer for Elizabeth Warren, right? And I want you to go to that staffer and just say, listen, China has got some emails on Trump. He's doing all kinds of illegal crap, right? He's doing all kinds of illegal crap. And then when that Warren asset then goes and tells another FBI asset, hey, I heard China's got this illegal crap on Trump. That's it. Now you have carte blanche to spy on Elizabeth Warren, 3 years of investigations, everything, the whole 9 yards. There was no crime. It was manufactured. Yet no one cares. They don't care about election interference if it didn't benefit Trump. Election interference that hurt Trump, they are absolutely all for it. And let's not kid ourselves, which I've said from the get-go. Any country in the world, the Ukraine, Russia, China, the UK, France, Germany, India, I don't care. None of them have the ability to affect our elections or our governance, our system of governments, even 1/100th of the amount than could be done by our CIA, our FBI, our NSA. If our intel agents are working to interfere in an election, they could do a substantially more damaging job than any of those countries. And that's exactly what we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, you're right, John. You see with the Epstein business. They don't care. They don't care at all. And listen, you hear people say this. You hear people say, well, you don't even have to prove a crime to impeach Trump. It's just all about public opinion. And the people that are influencing public opinion are lying pedophile protectors. And we can prove it. So, that's all I got for today. I got to leave these dogs out before the wife gets home. But thanks for listening. Please, if you don't mind, recommend me to some other people. And if you can, like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll be putting out more material as the time goes on. I'm going to try to interview people. I have some people, like some conspiracy theorist people that want to talk to me. I don't necessarily agree with everything they say, but I guess I'm willing to have anyone on. I don't care. And if I disagree, I disagree. That's what it is. If anyone would like to participate, please email me. My email is just my name. It's just rob.noor@gmail.com, which I'll type down here. And you can go ahead and get a hold of me if you need to for any reason. But yeah, I would love to have people participate, and I'd really appreciate if people could help spread my videos and things like that. So thank you so much, and look forward to me putting out more stuff soon. So I really appreciate it, everyone. Have a good one.